The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Good afternoon, good evening everyone, and welcome to the first round of the Sprint Series. We're back on ACC, and for those of you who were here 2 weeks ago, you'll be thinking, what are you talking about, Milky? We had the first round back at Monza. Well, sadly we had a few server issues, which meant that we effectively had to postpone the opening race to here at Zolder. Sadly, Monza's results will never count. But I do have some good news, because the wonderful Chris Buxton has joined me in the commentary box. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you here with me.
It's a great pleasure to be part of this series. Yeah, it was unfortunate for Monza last time out, but even the greats suffer technical trouble. But we are here at Zolder, a very overlooked Belgian classic. It's been in Belgian racing history for many, many years, and even had Formula One going around its corners a number of years ago when Spa was being overhauled. Now, this is not a circuit for the faint of heart, nor is it one that favours the power hungry that love the long straights. This is twisty, it's quite bumpy in places, and going to be very testing for our drivers.
And when you kind of think back to, you know, the prestige of a track like Monaco in Formula One, this a circuit which is very power hungry. We saw some of the drivers who were very quick, particularly a few in the McLarens, really struggling to be able to battle against the likes of the Mercedes, the Aston Martins come wheel-to-wheel battling, because you could get really good exits, but it just wouldn't matter. Here at Zolder, they have a slightly better opportunity to outperform some of the other manufacturers.
Yeah, absolutely. Monza is very much the kind of, the Mercedes, the Aston playground almost. Prime opportunity to get those horses really galloping. Here, exactly as you say, Yusuf, very much tables turned. This is going to favour the very balanced, very well stable setup. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not really going to favour those that want all the horses down a straight but can't corner for love nor money. McLarens, I would think, are going to be a favourite here. Possibly the BMW. I think I'm kind of expecting the McLarens to be really showing their true colours this time around.
It's interesting because I know before we came into the season, I was talking to a few of the drivers and a lot of them quite liked the McLarens. But then prior to the opening round, essentially at Monza, and even this round, the BMWs and the Bentleys got a nice little BOP change in their favour. That's why we've got quite a few drivers in the BMWs, whereas last year it was practically unheard of to see any BMWs. I believe it was only Simply Race Zancho, that used the BMW for maybe 1 or 2 rounds at some of the lower speed circuits. So I'm glad that we've got a lot of BMWs in. As you mentioned as well, Chris, we've got those McLarens, a few Aston Martins, and maybe we'll see a few other manufacturers over the course of this race, maybe over the course of the season if we do get new entries in. One of the features of the second season of the Sprint Series compared to the first is once a team has picked a car, it is locked in for the rest of the season. They can't chop and change over the course of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It really forces people to be consistent. Something I've always talked about is consistency is king when it comes to any kind of long series, irrespective of whether it's shorter races, longer races. You've got to stay consistent. It's no good you being the fastest one out there if you bin it at every single, every lap or every other lap. So you've got to maintain that and keeping people in those cars. There's going to be times when one car is going to outperform another, but the season is structured so that no one car should run away with all the honours. Exactly as you say, Yusuf, we have got a good collection of BMWs. Looking on the list, we've got 16 drivers in our qualifying session at present, and I see 5 BMWs currently in the list and 4 McLarens. We've got 1 Mercedes I can see, that's going to struggle. The Lexus I think might be a bit of an unknown quantity for Zolder in particular. Quite a few Astons out there. I'm not expecting them to be doing particularly well, but I'm not a driver, so I stand to be ready to be corrected on that one. As George Boothby has just gone parking it on the outside of turn 2, exploring the limits there. See, we've had the practice session, qualifying session now underway. He's got just under 25 minutes left to run. Now, last time at Monza, Pierluca Amato was particularly strong, I think it's fair to say, but this is a great opportunity for a new form to be established. Of course, we're right at the beginning of the season, so the form book is yet to be written. Exactly as you said, Yusuf, some of the cars have had that balance of performance that have really changed the characteristics and probably rewritten the pecking order from what we're used to seeing in the past.
Yeah, and when we talk about the top of the championship as well, you look to Pierluca Amato, who was part of the two-man team alongside Tiziano Brioni, who won the inaugural season of the Sprint Series. He had a fantastic showing in Monza, and we were wondering, okay, maybe he could run away with this championship, but a couple of new entries in the form of Ahmed Hosseini, George Boothby, 2 very quick drivers who will be taking the challenge to Pierluca Amato. And we also saw in that race in Monza that ended up being cancelled, that there were a few other drivers out there who were kind of able to match the pace of Pierluca Amato. In qualifying, Amato seemed to have the raw pace advantage, but in the race there wasn't too much to separate them, and 2 of those drivers, Bonacorsi, Cataneo, I'm interested interested to see what they're going to be able to do. Currently, Bonacorsi sitting in 5th place, actually running with the Ferrari, so switching over from what was the BMW that he was running with 2 weeks ago.
I'm very curious to see what Marcello Bonacorsi is able to do, and I apologise in advance for my pronunciation of names. I am English, I am never going to get them right. But there's several names I'm very curious to see, because I've seen them in other avenues. Christian Sandell, a prime example. He's been seen in the F1 games leading up to this point, a fairly recent switch over to ACC. Very curious to see how he's going to do. Pierluca Amato, as we mentioned, is set to do pretty well. There's a couple of other names that I've seen before. Bastian Offerman, I've seen once or twice before. George Boothby representing Yas Heat. Now that's a name I've seen in GT colours before, so he should be pretty strong. He's in the McLaren, the number 75 McLaren, so looking forward to seeing how he can do as well.
And we know how quick George Boothby is. I think I was actually commentating on him for, I think it was an event, a Nürburgring 24-hour qualification race that I saw him participating in, and yeah, absolutely flying. And that's why interested to see how Boothby is able to compare to Amato and Hosseini. 8 minutes into qualifying though, and our current best laps from our top three: a 28.1 from Pierluca Amato, Ahmed Hosseini a 28.4, and George Boothby a 28.6. So at the moment, Chris, it does seem that Pierluca Amato just has that little edge over his two up-and-coming competitors.
Yeah, BMW 1-2 at the moment. Not a lot to read into how the times are looking at the moment. You're expecting the banker laps to be out. I do have to... What is that colour scheme? Now, most of the liveries look absolutely stunning. This, however, I'm sorry, I can't warm to this. That is... No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, in fairness to the drivers and teams, they sadly haven't been able to take custom liveries in for the race just due to potential server issues that may arise.
Right.
So they've all had to go with the default liveries that are available, or the liveries that you can only customize through the game itself. Mm-hmm. So as a result, we've got some more interesting liveries. I think Pierluca Amato, he's just taken a default, because when I spoke to him, I don't think he was a big fan of having liveries. He just likes to run with something standard. And ordinarily you'd say something that doesn't stand out, but in the end it's the complete opposite effect that has occurred for that BMW.
Yeah, that's kind of nauseating. I'm sorry, I'm not... I love the car, don't get me wrong, that BMW is fabulous. The colours, yeah, I will leave that alone. I'm not going to keep poking that nest. The car behind, the Bentley behind, that I've run a quarrel with that at all. I think that's our sole Bentley in the field, so that would be Vaca, which is Mattia Vaca. Again, apologies if I'm not getting the pronunciation quite right. Car number 16, one of the Ballas Esport squads. Quite a few of the Ballas representatives. Oh, of course, as soon as we switch to you, you go and bury it in the sand. Of course you do. Yellow flags, yeah, fairly ineffectual. Our lone Ferrari, Marcello Bonacorsi. It's going to be pronounced something like that. It's as close as I'm ever going to get. Where are you? You are coming around. That's the tight right-hander. Now, the names of the corners I'm going to struggle with. I'm going to give them a go. Now, I've got no quarrel with that kind of livery, that lovely dark livery with the purple and green flashes. Coming through the Jackie X box, which is the Jackie X chicane, to complete the lap. Currently sits in 5th position, car number 475. An improvement up to 4th, displacing Mattia Vaca, but plenty of time to, of course, get that one done. You can see the time at the bottom, 1:28.785 is once the 474, the number 475 car has put on the board. But again, this is rather highlighted what we were talking about. The BMW, the McLaren, the Ferrari, these are cars that favour balance, kind of by design. Yes, they're all... Oh, did you see that twitch coming through the Lucien Bianchi box? That was that got very lively. That would have woken him up somewhat coming through there. You want to talk about, you know, the kind of regularity that, yeah, you want your car to behave yourself, and suddenly it wants to snap going through that early turn. Now, yeah, the BMW, the McLaren, the Ferrari, these are cars that are kind of naturally geared towards balance. Yes, of course, they are tuned to the teams and the drivers' likings, but there are some cars that just favour power or favour balance, and the top four at the moment certainly fit into the balance category, as Bonacorsi has decided to park it. As we were watching him going through his laps, this teleports back to the pit. Mattia Traversa now. That's I think it was the name we were looking at earlier, on board with the BMW, bouncing over the grass, nothing particularly too off. Now, watching on board, you'll see the undulation change, which has gone over a crest, over to the left-hand side, heavy on the brakes, down to first gear, all the way over on the steering lock. It is really, really tight. Coming through that small chicane, and then heading over to this, probably a bit compromised this particular lap. Final chicane, this is the Jackie chicane. And yeah, this is very, very cautious. So probably winding up for another lap here. Oh, got a lot of boot full in there. You saw turning left into a right-hander. It's not typically the way you want to do things. Time on the board, yeah, 1:30.5. That's not going to be it's not going to be pestering the top of the boards just yet, but you get an idea just from this on board that the kind of challenge that our drivers are going to be facing is lots of undulation changing. So now jumping on board the Alessio Cantanillo, again BMW, now coming into an area I call the complex. The names and the numbers are a bit strange up here, but you really got to keep the car nice and balanced. You're not necessarily on the gas a long time, but if you go off into the dust, look how close those barriers are. You made a comparison to Monaco earlier. You will hurt if you make a mistake. Here is probably one of the only substantial runoff areas, other than turns 1 and 2. There's probably the only substantial runoff area you've got in the entire lap. Those barriers are very unforgiving.
And one of the things that I really do love about this Zolder circuit is that you've got a very nice mix of corners. You look at the opening sector from turns 1 to 4, very fast, sweeping corners. You've got a left followed by 3 very quick right-handers. Okay, turn 2 maybe not the quickest of the corners, but it is still relatively quick versus the rest of the circuit. And then you've got much tighter corners. You look towards the likes of turn 5 and then turn 7, turn 8 as well. We've also got improvements happening because it is Ahmed Hosseini who is the first man into the 27s. He pumped in a 27.9 and then he proceeded to beat that time by 2 tenths at 27.7 and 4 tenths clear of Pierluca Amati. So Ahmed Hosseini putting a little stamp down.
Very nicely done. Yeah, that's a bit more like it. I'm expecting more people to get into the 27s. Oh, that was a bit early there from Bonacorsi. Yeah, he turned in a bit early to that chicane there and then tried to straight line the exit and just bounced over the apex. You do have to do that to a point, but you've got to be very careful. Also, you really are flirting with cutting those apexes. That you're not going to get away with too many of those. But he's keeping his foot flat to the floor in the Sol Ferrari over the crest. Now down to the tight right-hander we saw earlier on. Really pushing on now. Already in 5th position. A decent effort there. But we are already well over halfway in the session now. So people are now going to be thinking about getting the, usurping their banker laps, getting their representative times on the board. We're still going to be seeing the very best times left till last because nobody wants to show the hand too early. What is Bonacorsi going to do? Over to the right hand side, probably setting up for another lap. That was a 1:29.9. So there again, the Ferrari getting very fidgety, getting through that first turn. It's difficult to kind of get an appreciation of how bumpy this circuit can be, but when you start seeing those very sudden snaps of countersteer, you start to get an idea of how difficult this circuit really is, and they're going to do this for 2 hours.
And one of the biggest things about turn 1 is it's a bit of a blind entry into the corner, so you have to be fully committed with that turn in before the corner even approaches. And if you get it slightly wrong, it can cost you so much time. And it's one of those cases where you've got to give high risk and you get rather a low reward. And that's the case for quite a few of the corners here at Zolder. You see Marcelo Bonacorsi with that beautiful helicopter camera, just how much curb you can use through the complex of turn turn 7. This lap's pretty much identical to his current best, so sitting at around 28.7. He's only 2/10 shy as well of the lap of Alessio Cataneo, his fellow Ballas teammate, and we'll see whether he can jump ahead of the number 25 car and up into P4 as he makes his way through the final chicane of the lap.
And see what he can get on the board then. Final turn, but nailed to the bulkhead. And does he improve? Yep, that's up one position. That's a 28.487 and claims that 4th position, slots behind the lead McLaren of George Booth.
Got a few other drivers improving as well. One of them, Pierluca Amato, who, well, Pierluca has been chipping away at his time. Oh my god, did you see how much curb he used through the chicane? Absolutely insane. And that's another case of where you just have to really risk it, using up as much curb as you can, unsettling the car being the key term. But Pierluca Amato has been chipping away at his own time, still 3/10 shy of Ahmed Hosseini.
Yeah, Pierluca Amato, very, very aggressive over all of the apexes, really using every available pixel to his advantage, and that's gone wrong. You turned in a little too late into that apex. I suspect he missed his braking point, tried to make the turn, but has bailed on that one to get himself back to the pits and back on song as quickly as we can. Flip Van Zyl, also in the BMW, currently sits in 12th position. 130.105. So as is typically the way with these types of GT races, the times in between each car are fairly narrow, and the lap isn't particularly long, so it's really hard to make up times. Very, very easy to lose it, however.
Absolutely, and we're going to be seeing plenty of people dropping time over the course of this race. 16 drivers on the grid here at Zolder. I can't wait for us to get underway for the race. But before that, 11.5 minutes of qualifying, as I think we've got a couple of drivers on a relatively quick lap. One of those being the man on your screen, Domenk Link, coming in with the number 83 car, which is the Space Pace Esports. And, well, for Space Pace, let's see whether they have the pace of, I guess, a car from outer space. Can we say that?
Well, you just did. So there we go, car number 83 just coming up to the line then in the McLaren. What can he get on the board? 129.6 his previous lap, 129.4, so he's done a 129.212 that's put him into 8th position. So still about second and a half off the top spots, but pressing on nonetheless. A nice midfield slot then for Domenk Linker, as you say, for Space Esports. And the McLaren looks a little bit more settled than some of the cars. Oh, literally, as I'm saying that, full drift. Wow, Tokyo drift, eat your heart out. I don't think McLaren really designed this car to be a drift car, but that timing could not have been better. The commentator curse is strong in me tonight.
It was, and this is why I really like to watch racing at Zolder, just because of the amount of commitment you have to have, and because you really want that front end to be able to turn in for some of the lower speed corners. It's so easy for the back end to step out through the higher speed corner of turn 4. Actually, I think turn 4 is probably the quickest corner on the circuit, maybe with the exception of the kink, the right-hander that we just went through. But expect to see a lot of that over the course of the race, especially when you get towards the end of a stint, when the fuel level gets low and the tyre wear gets nice and high.
Fatigue also something to bear in mind as well. So yeah, bearing in mind these guys have been going for quite a while. He's not completely overshot the track. That's the pit lane entrance. Now that could catch a couple of people out. I have seen people follow somebody into the pits when they shouldn't have done. Think Montreal, Canada, in Formula 1 terms, exactly the same. Whoops! No, that's gone. That was the Mercedes introducing itself to the wall. Dario Barsgo not quite catching the car. That one is going to need a little bit of panel beating with the mechanics on that one. But again, that's how easy it is to lose the car.
So initially you see him getting onto the grass before the corner entry, and that looks like it might be what essentially causes the entire issue, but he gets the car stable again. I think it's when he turns into the corner, I think maybe just a little bit too much lock, and I think he just uses up too much curb. And again, the key word being unsettling the car, essentially the front wheel goes up onto the curb. It just shifts the balance of the car, the weight, over to the wrong side, and that can cause the car to spin, which is what you see is one of the hot points really on the circuit, to see spins, just because that corner is flat out and you have to be committed to getting it right. However, we are now riding on board with Pierluca Amato, still sitting in P2 in qualifying, and 3/10 down on Ahmed Hosseini. This lap though, he is 2/10 up on his PB, Chris, so maybe if he can absolutely perfect this final sector, he can jump Hosseini to the top spot.
3/10 is difficult to make up in a single lap, but he's giving it everything he's got nonetheless, if nothing else, to secure that second spot. Less than 8 minutes remaining before the checkered flag falls on this session. Can't quite see who that is ahead of him, but it's not anywhere near close enough to influence his lap. Now, just watch the steering inputs from Pierluca Amato as well. You're not seeing the wild counter steering we've seen from other people. 27.747, so a great improvement, but it's still second place for the second place BMW.
1/100th of a second, Chris, separating Ahmed Hosseini and Pierluca Amato with 7 minutes on the clock. Things are getting tight, and all we need now is George Boothby or Marcelo Bonacorsi to be able to find a little bit more time and to be able to join these two for what would become a 3-way or maybe even a 4-way fight.
Yeah, nothing much then. Easy for us to say. Alessio Cataneo, let's see what he's got on board. So, 3 of the top 5 BMWs, 1 McLaren, 1 Ferrari in that mixture. The Bentley of Vaca, the lead kind of power or more power-orientated car, that of the Bentley's just returned back to the pit. What can Alessio Cataneo do? Now, we've seen, as I say, a few liberties being taken with some of the apexes from some of our drivers, but that is exactly as you said earlier, Yusuf, you've got to be pushing those limits to get the very best times, to extract the very best out of your car. Again, nice and settled from Cataneo. Again, no wild counter steering going on, but that's backed out of that. Yeah, a little bit too slow on that, sadly. But again, leading up to that point, it was looking fairly good. But again, coming back to what I was saying about balance, we've seen several drivers having to feverishly counter-steer or wildly drift, as we've seen a few others doing. But, we're not seeing that. It seems to be the BMWs look like they're very well balanced and just keeping everything nice and settled, which is really what you need, especially in longer races.
Yeah, we saw on the timing screen as well as Andrea Corti on your screen at the moment. Where is he currently sitting on the timing standings? P11 at 29.7, a tenth shy of Simone Vacirca. But just going back to essentially what we saw with the timetable, Sector 1 pretty much even from Pierluca Amato and Ahmed Hosseini, but it's Sector 2 and Sector 3 where the difference is, with Amato being a little bit quicker in that final sector. And the final sector is more of the horsepower sector, you could say. You've got the exit coming out of turn 8, the exit coming out of turn 10, whereas the middle sector, you're going through some of the lower speed corners, the chicane of turn 5, the chicane of turn 7. So maybe it just seems that Pierluca Amato has a little bit of extra grunt in his BMW, maybe has a bit less downforce on the car, and that could be something to keep an eye out for come the race.
Yeah, that's a difficult balance to strike up. These corners are very difficult, irrespective of which way you go with it, whether you go high downforce or high top end. As we look at Alessio, Corti coming over the line, remains in 12th position, almost grazing the wall to open up the line into that first turn, which again you absolutely have to do. As we now switch to our Heat competitor, that is Mr. Boothby in that very distinctive yellow McLaren.
I'm just going to jump across you quickly, Chris, because Cataneo has just put in a stonking lap at 28.1. He's jumped up from, I think he was in P6, all the way up into P3 ahead of George Boothby. So fantastic lap coming in from the number 25 driver.
So top 3 are now BMWs with Ahmed Hosseini, Pierluca Amato, and now Alessio Cataneo, all holding the top spots for the German mark. And Cataneo is still pressing on, dances over the apexes of that small chicane, now leading into the complex, and he's really hammering it. Very nicely done. He's got a fair amount of traffic. There's George Boothby, you can see on the camera there, just going out of shot. I think he is actually Cataneo. So the McLaren is chasing hot in the tyre tracks of the BMWs ahead. Andrea Corti, we were talking about earlier, is just coming up to the line now in the Lexus. Our sole Lexus in the field. What can he put on the board then? 12th position at the moment. Car number 33, 129.547. His best of the session, slots him into 10th.
A good lap coming through from Corti, and as we mentioned, towards the end of the session, that's when most of the rubber has been put down, and it's also when the pressure really starts to mount on drivers, and where it becomes absolutely essential that you nail your lap. And speaking of drivers improving, Luca Princi, Dario Barzaghi also improving on their lap times. Princi still in the early stages of his lap as he's coming towards the end of Sector 1, making his way out of Turn 4 down towards Turn 5. And Chris, let's see how much curb the man takes.
Let's have a look. And hit the first one quite hard, but rode the second one fairly well. You're always going to get a little bit airborne. Those curbs are pretty steep. So, you know, the GT cars don't like that level of bouncing, but again, you know you're going to be hitting them fairly hard. You get away with it to a point in ACC, so you're able to. Oh, Brinty went very wide on the exit of the complex there. Again, commentator curse is strong in me today. Into the sharp right-hander, they keep that one under control. That's the Jochen Rinbocht. Well, Jochen Rinbocht is the small chicane, I beg your pardon. That was the Boulder Bear. See, I told you I get the same right. Final chicane then, that's the Jackie X Bocht. What he's going to, I would imagine this is quite heavily compromised. Going particularly that far wide on the exit of the complex isn't going to help. But a 29, well, actually, owe me little faith. That was 29.182, best of the session, slots him into 8th.
But this is the man that we need to be watching, Pierluca Amato, who is currently 100th down on Ahmed Hosseini, and this lap is pretty much dead even with his previous lap. If he hooks up this final chicane, you can see the back end squirreling on corner exit as he tries to get the power down.
Does he have enough over the line? 27.835. No, that one was not as strong. There is his qualifying done. He will not have time to set another one. Here is Amir Hassini. What can he do? Doesn't need to do anything else. So that pulse. Whoa! Lots of opposite lock. That's just how hard he's pushing. That is how aggressive he's been with these curbs. Which again, as we said before, you've got to use every pixel, every available inch of track available to you, but therefore that line between perfection and death is that much smaller.
He's backed out of it.
And he's backed out of it. He doesn't need to do anything else now, although it does look like he's winding up for one last try.
They might be able to get one final push. Pierluca Amato is in the pits. He can't do anything else. Luca Princi was a 10th up. He's making his way into the final chicane, but there's a bit of a chasm between himself and Kostiantin Romanenko in P7. 3/10 between the two of them.
Indeed. We will see if they're able to close that down before the session ends. Checkered flag is out. Princey literally stopped right on the line. Hopefully that hasn't aggravated anybody. You can see on the overhead camera, that's Cataneo going for one last run. So didn't beat the flag by much, but he's on the go nonetheless. The bright pink car coming over the line, that's Romanenko. What are they? Is there a improvement there for 7th? Not this time, I don't think.
He actually went a 10th quicker, but he invalidated somewhere. Otherwise, he would have hit Mattia Vacca for P6. But we've got our results on the screen now. Ahmed Hosseini taking pole on his first race.
Crikey. Well. Was on there. I don't think Yeah, Amir Hassini wasn't with us in Monza, so again, a bit of an unknown quantity as far as what we saw last time out, but Cataneo can still improve. We've got a few people still on a hot lap, and Cataneo is one of them. Will he be able to climb? Nope, he's banzaied into the pits. Of course we do. We look at you, start bigging you up, and you run off into the pit lane. Of course you do. Varsirka, I'm again apologising if I'm getting that wrong, in the Aston 12th position at present. 130.5 keeps you in 5th position. So just one we had a last minute addition to the list, I think, because we've now got 17 drivers, although one of them seems to have appeared twice.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Simone Versika's had a problem because he was on the list twice. Never mind, ignore me.
Well, with that, we're getting ready to jump on into the race, Chris, and
yes.
Well, Ahmed Hosseini, Pierluca Amato on the front row of the grid. We were expecting Ahmed Hosseini and George Boothby to be able to challenge Amato, but George Boothby may be a little bit off the pace currently, Chris. We
will see. I mean, if they put all their focus into race pace rather than qualifying pace, we simply don't know how they're going to transpire. So, but it is indeed Amir Hosseini and Pierluca Amato on the first row. Then it is Cataneo and Boothby, row 2. Bonacorsa and Vaca, row 3. Mominenko and Princi, row 4. Linka and Bazagi in row 5. Then there's Corti and Varterka in row 6. Van Zyl and Dvorak at row 7, and Traversa and Keolato on the tail end of the field. Lovely helicam shot there would get the session rolling very shortly. One rolling lap and then 2 hours. That's going to then decide how this season is going to open.
And I'm so excited for this. 2 BMWs on the front row, 3 BMWs in the top 3. And this is where strategy starts to come into play. Who's put more fuel in the car? Who's going longer in that first stint? And more importantly, who can get into turn 1 first?
That's going to be crucial, isn't it? And do we want to talk about how pink Romanenko's car is? Good grief, that's another very bright livery going on. So, yeah, this is when the tensions rise. This is the few times I've done any kind of sim racing. This is the point I hated, was the lead up to the race. But we are underway. We are green light racing here at Zolder. 2 hours. He's underway, and then now Hosseini's had a great run into turn 1, but Amato hasn't. Has had a bit of a rough time. That has Cataneo that's gone up into 2nd position already, and wow, Hosseini is just running off into it. George Boothby has lost a couple of positions. Wow, he's lost several positions. He's down into 5th position now in the McLaren. That's Romanenko that is in the bright pink car that has gone up a little bit. Now the tower's going to start sorting itself out now that they're at the end of sector 1. But look at the gap that Hosseini's got.
Yeah, it's a fantastic start from Ahmed Hosseini, and it was Pierluca Amato who went a bit wide through turn 1. It allowed Alessio Cataneo to get down his inside, but that's 75. George Boothby going down the inside into the chicane.
Oh, that's a bit brutish for George Boothby, determined to re-secure 4th position from Romanenko. That'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of repercussion from that. There you go, look at that BMW 1, 2, 3. They do not want to be letting Hosseini run off into the distance. Lots of potential side-by-side going on there. There's the helicam shot. Boothby and Romanenko, both McLarens, one nice yellow, the other one garish pink, and I won't be told otherwise. Oh, look how close Vaca was to slamming into the back of Romanenko. That was very, very close. Bonacorsi, 7th position in the Ferrari, just can't quite see him. They don't want to be letting the BMWs run off into the distance. They're pressing on nonetheless, though, and again, very close. Romanenko getting to the tail end of Boothby. They do know that it's a 2-hour race, don't they?
And don't forget, one of the most important things with the start of the race is, before this, everyone was running in low fuel mode. The drivers are all completely used to having as empty of a fuel tank as possible, being able to go onto the brakes as late as possible, having peak performance from their cars. But now with a full fuel load in the car, essentially, it does mean that the handling changes a little bit, and sometimes you can get caught out. You can see the slide, and it's happened to the McLaren. Romanenko off on the 2nd lap of the race.
He was lucky to keep that out of the wall. He managed to slow that one down. There may have been a small kiss on the outside there, but he's. We'll see that again. Well, what led to this point?
It's the curb. It's entirely on the curb.
Unless he was unsettled before he went in there. Oh no, he was a bit unsettled. I think he broke a bit too hard going into that chicane. He didn't hit the apex that hard, but he was already sliding. So that just basically momentum took over, and into the dust he went. There is our race leader. That he's still maintaining. That lead hasn't grown any, but he's just maintaining his pace. The BMW is showing how it's done up front now. We'll see if they're able to continue to run away, but Amir Hassani is showing the world how it's done. The McLarens aren't too far behind, so is George Boothby beginning to close in? Oh no, he's done it again. It's exactly the same thing again.
I think that's a replay of.
Is that a replay? Was he done it again?
Yes. Yeah. We got another one.
We got another replay. All right. So that was how it looked. So yeah, that basically just showed that he went in too hard. I did think he'd overdone it again. So there's Sassani. So he had. That's
Alex
why.
Alex Chialato was just involved in an incident. I'm not quite sure what happened to him.
Oh dear. There's Chialato. Now what's happened here? He got spun round. That's a bit of a shame. So that's what dropped into the tail end of him. A long way to go. He just needs to reset. It's easy for us to say in the commentary box, though, Grant, you would just need to reset, get back into your rhythm, and just let the miles turn. We will see. Boothby, fastest lap in P4. Where's his... Romanenko's fallen down to 11. That's BMW's having an argument coming through the complex there. That would be... That's a Van Zillen Traversa that seem to be trying to figure out how to get through the complex area. There is the kind of BMW works livery almost on that car. Not the ideal way of taking that complex area. Fastest lap's now gone back to Hosseini. He's seen the McLaren do his thing. He's like, nah, you know what, I fancy that back. There is Pierluca Amato, third position on the tail end of Cataneo, where he's been all race long. On board then with the number 36. Coming back to what you're saying about the fuel loads, Yusuf. Yeah, absolutely. The liters of fuel, you really cannot underestimate just how much of a difference it makes. Sounds really obvious. Put fuel in, will be heavier. Yes, true, but like I say, you always practice in optimum conditions. Unless you've put time into practicing with weight in the car, you will just instinctively go for the braking point you're used to, and it will send you off into the dust. So Hosseini doesn't seem to be worrying about it too much. He's got a lovely lead up front now. But Amato all over the back of Cataneo at the moment, but needs to find the opportune moment to come past. Now, you said earlier, Yusuf, that overtaking is a bit of a premium here. And you're absolutely right. Now here is one of the most opportune braking moments. We've got such a heavy braking zone leading into that hard right-hander, but the run to it is not very long. So if you get the last corner of that complex wrong, there goes your opportunity. Now I think Amato wasn't quite expecting Cataneo to brake where he did. Got very squiggly. Also, look on the rear view camera monitor of Amato. There is George Boothby. So that McLaren is homing in on the second and third place BMWs.
Absolutely, and another thing that Pierluca Amato will be able to see, or maybe now can't really see, is Ahmed Hosseini pulling off into the distance. Pierluca Amato fairly clearly quicker than Alessio Cataneo, but he can't find a way through. It's a long race, it's a 2-hour endurance race, there's a lot of time remaining, but that being said, Pierluca Amato will not want to give any extra time to Cataneo, more specifically any extra time to Ahmed Hosseini to be able to pull away and run away with this race.
Very true, but it's Cataneo got that all kind of wrong. Surely this is an opportunity for Amato, but Cataneo just nailed himself to the inside line. Amato didn't fancy that. Probably this early in the race, I can't blame him either. Again, the BMW getting very squiggly, but Amato can't afford to just sit in the tyre tracks of the BMW ahead, mainly because of that bright yellow McLaren right behind him, the Yaz Heat car of George Boothby. If George wasn't there, Amato could just occupy his time and stay in the tyre tracks of Cataneo and just wait for him to fall off the track. Can't do it. When you've got three people in the fight, you've got to keep half an eye behind you, and that completely changes the dynamic of the queue, unless your team is, Boothby nearly runs into the back of the BMW. Is this an opportunity for the 75 McLaren?
Well, Boothby's all over the rear end of that BMW, but the McLaren does struggle in a straight line. And where Boothby will be looking to get past Amato is maybe, as you mentioned, if Amato goes for something a little bit too aggressive on Cataneo, that could open the door. You can see Pierluca Amato taking this defensive line into turn 2, and the pressure, you could say the heat from the Yassi is most certainly on.
You couldn't help yourself, could you? Fair play. But yeah, absolutely. The Yas Heat driver putting on as much heat as he can to try and unsettle Pierluca Amato from that third position. Bouncing over the apexes again through that chicane area. You can see the onboard there on the left-hand side. That is Pierluca Amato, as well as the helicam shot. That is second, third and fourth, all in that lovely train that we are currently enjoying. But again, as well, Vaca is not far behind Boothby either. There is the McLaren, and there is Vaca right with him. Oh, look at this. That's slightly further down. That's Pizzaghi with Vercherka, again, apologies for getting the pronunciation wrong, all over his tail. This fights up and down the field. That's what we love to see.
Yeah, it's it's actually a four-way battle. Andrea Corti heading this group. But look at Vercherka. That's Romanenko on his tail. We saw Romanenko sideways, and now he's going to look down the inside into the final chicane.
Get it sorted out before you get there. That's going to get nasty. I mean, it's wide enough to go too wide, but it's not going to help your exit. Romanenko looked like he had a decent amount of traction, but cannot get the position. Remains in 11th. Well driven from both of them there. The Aston and the McLaren are very, very different. Big move. Is that going to be impact? No impact between the pair of them. Well driven again from Romanenko and from Vercherka. Very, very nicely done. The defensive play from the Aston is absolutely brilliant. But Romanenko does look like he's got the pace. Remember, he started about 5th, I think it was hustling for the podium positions earlier on before his earlier spin. So Romanenko's got the pace, but it's that he's looking for the right, not just an opportunity, the right time. You had to think about it into that chicane. It's death if you try and go side by side there. He got that first apex wrong and bounces heavily over the second one. That's why you've got to get that first apex right. He just catapults you over the second one. You can visibly see the time he's lost as a result. But the Aston's got that wrong. Vercherka has just had to bounce over the dust. Now, if Romanenko hadn't have made that mistake in the complex, he would have probably been able to make a move through the complex. Someone that's Pizzaghi, I think, has gone off into the dust. Is Romanenko going to bounce high on the inside? No, the Aston goes for the defensive line. Great stuff.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look at the replay. Just way too late on the brakes from Vercherka. It wasn't about carrying too much speed into the corner. He just jumped on the brakes too late, ran wide, but critically, he did not give an opportunity for Romanenko to find a way through. Now, through the final corner, it's a decent exit for Romanenko. He could look towards the inside again, but it's not a heavy braking zone into turn 1. He's tucked right behind the Aston. Does he look down the inside? He will, and unlike last time round, he's further ahead into T1.
Yeah, Vercherka had to get out of that. He was running out of road. Firm but fair from Romanenko there. That McLaren has got brilliant corner exit ability. So he's been able to utilize that to position himself and able to brake later than certainly the Aston he's been challenging. There now on the stream is the battle for second. Looking at the livery I don't like the most, which is Amato's car. And look at Vaca right on the case of the McLaren right behind him. Absolutely great stuff. And again, they're having to be very careful about when they make the overtaking move, when they make the pass, because they don't just want to banzai it and send everybody off into the dust and let the leaders run off into the distance. So patience is really what is the name of the game here.
Absolutely, and Alessio Cataneo, he's just a cork in the bottle. You know when you get to the end of the race and you get champagne? Yeah, he's that cork right now, and there's a whole lot of spray that wants to be coming out, and Pierluca Amato wants to be spearheading that charger through into P2. Cataneo got a great start. He started in P3. He got P2 into turn 1, and he has held control since then. But look at Mattia Varca on the back of George Boothby as well, and honestly, this battle can go anyway. Marcello Bonacorsi in win this as well to make it a 5-way battle for P2.
BMW, McLaren, Bentley, Ferrari, all in this particular battle. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Cataneo is the cork in the bottle, but he doesn't care. It is up to everybody else to make their way past him. He's just holding his line. He knows how difficult it is to pass here, so just has to not make a mistake, which is a darn sight easier said than done. Absolutely true. But if he just keeps on running his lines and keeping the pace he's got, because there's not a huge pace deficit between himself and those chasing him, so he's got enough pace to keep the pack behind him unless somebody makes an absolute banzai move or if Cataneo makes a mistake. So the advantage is with that second place BMW now. Amir Hassani's just run off. He's disappeared now, so the only person that's going to undo his race is himself at this point.
Well, so far George Boothby has that P4 spot. He's quicker than, well, at the very least quicker than Cataneo. We have seen, and that's a warning for Romanenko. We saw that dive that he did on Vachirka. He went down the inside and he essentially made a little bit of contact. He squeezed Vachirka wide, and that's why we heard the warning from race control directed towards the Ukrainian driver.
Indeed. Race control not happy with how that one was handled, but the race continues. Let's look at this pack. Again, that's what it looks like from the spectator standpoint. Boothby is really having to defend hard from Mattia Vacca at the moment for that fourth position. He can't just concentrate on the cars ahead. He's got to try and keep Vacca. Oh, is he going to have a go? No, he thinks better than that one. It's tempting to try and make a move into that chicane, but unless you are along. Oh, hello. That's Cataneo, and he's been nailed. Yeah, Amato's got him. Amato managed to make the move, but he got that one done before they got to the complex. Here it is again, and now the camera is focused on Boothby, but you can still see the BMWs. Now, Cataneo must have had a bad exit from that complex, because you can see Amato had the inside line getting down into that next chicane. Very nicely done, but I would imagine that's going to be Amato released now to run off into the distance, and Boothby doesn't want to be left behind, having to think about it, coming up to the penultimate turn, doesn't commit to the move though. He's taking his time, needing to pick the right spot to do it. We're only 15 minutes in.
It's kind of crazy that we're only 15 minutes into this race. And Pierluca Amato, 10 seconds behind Ahmed Hosseini. That time that he spent behind Alessio Cataneo has cost him dearly. 10 seconds in just 15 minutes. 10 seconds in 10 laps. It's been a second a lap for Ahmed Hosseini, and you can already see the gap that Pierluca Amato has started to stretch out. And now it's on George Boothby. How quickly can he get past the BMW and spoil the BMW lockout of the podium?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, he's got himself a little bit of breathing space between himself and the chasing Bentley of Mattia Vacca. And again, he tried to straight line that last bit of that chicane. He hit it a bit too hard, so he just cost him that tiny bit of momentum, so he couldn't pull alongside the BMW. He wanted to try and repeat what Pierluca Amati did last time around, but he was never going to do it by straight lining the apex that hard. You just saw it just caused the car to become too unsettled, lost the momentum, and is keeping him behind Cataneo at the moment. Into the slow right-hander. Car feels really clumsy when it's that heavy and at those slow speeds. But you know Boothby's been trying to calculate where to make the move. He's got himself, as I said earlier, a bit of breathing space to Vacca now. The Bentley is falling a little bit off the back of the McLaren and into the clutches of Bonacorsi and the Ferrari. So now they're having their own squabble for 5th place. So that's going to give George Boothby possibly the breathing space he needs to try and challenge for 3rd.
I'm also keeping an eye on this battle for P8 between Andrea Corti and Konstantin Romanenko. 7/10 Romanenko was able to take off Corti last time round. This time round, he's taken 9/10. The gap between them only a couple of seconds. Romanenko making his way up the order, trying to make amends for that mistake that he made into the chicane on lap 2, where he dropped from, I think it was P4 all the way down to P10. As we're seeing George Boothby getting very close to the BMW, but again, you can't really throw it down the inside into this chicane. It's just arbitrary wrong, and the pair of them lose the back end.
Oh, that got very nasty. If Boothby had got a cleaner exit, he'd have had that move. But here comes Vaca. That breathing space I mentioned before has completely gone. That's how costly that mistake was from George Boothby. Now, whether he was slightly put off by the BMW getting very quickly, we don't know. But let's see it again. So we know what happens. Now, George doesn't look on the inside. That's more just a distraction tactic, but it could have been that put Vaca. And there we go. So the McLaren actually lost the tail first, and it was the BMW that made an absolute mess of the exit of that chicane that's basically kept the status quo, but has brought the chasing Bentley and Ferrari back into play for the battle for third.
And all the while, Pierluca Amato gets further and further away as well, riding on board with George Boothby. And the frustration is going to be starting to set in for the McLaren. You can see Pierluca Amato driving away, a little bit like how Pierluca Amato before could see Ahmed Hosseini driving away. And George Boothby is finding himself in that similar situation where he's got a Bentley right behind him, when Pierluca Amato didn't have a Bentley behind him. He had the McLaren of George Boothby, and that Bentley right on the rear end of the McLaren coming out of turn 4.
That Bentley is wanting to make a move. You can see Boothby staying very much to the inside line for as long as he can. Mattia Vaca thought about it, but it was way too late. But they compromised his line. How on earth did he slow that down? He was so late on the brakes, but managed to slow the big old Boatley, as is often nicknamed, which is a little unfair. It actually weighs the same as the rest of them, but it's just that it just has that imposing look that some of the other GT cars don't necessarily have. But oh, that was an opportunity possibly for Vaca, but that McLaren has just got such great corner exit that it's very difficult to keep up with. But he's keeping him in touch with Cataneo. Here we go again. The McLaren putting the pressure back on the BMW for third position. But that, because of that mistake from Vaca, that's given Boothby that breathing space again. We're going back over the same scenario we did 2 laps ago. But will the BMW and the McLaren get very quickly again coming through that chicane? Yeah, exactly as you said, Yusuf. That was very much frustration from Boothby, and probably Cataneo feeling the pressure of having to defend for what essentially been the whole race long, just defending from different people.
Cataneo, he's playing the old, what was it, Jarno Trulli back in F1 when he would be the moving roadblock. Now it is on Alessio Cataneo. Same nationality as well, maybe learning from his fellow Italian. But he's doing a fantastic job of it so far, and I think Pierluca Amato will be more than happy. He'll be saying, yeah, Cataneo, you held me behind for 10 laps. Go on, hold the rest of them up for the same amount of time. That will be justice being served to the rest of the field. And you can actually see a bit of a different line from Vaca into the chicane a little bit later, turning in, but just up ahead, George Boothby still close to the BMW, but he can't seem to find a way through. As actually, I'm going to take a look further down the field to a certain Kostiantin Romanenko, and actually, Romanenko's made a mistake, so I'm going to try to get a replay of this, because he had an issue of some sort, and I'm not quite sure what happened to him. So we can see Romanenko making his way through turn 3 and into turn 4, but it's in the chicane where he goes onto the gravel, and I'm quite interested to see how this happens, Chris.
It was side by side coming into that long right-hander with the Lexus. So, but it's gone wrong. Now the Lexus goes to that defensive line, but oh, he's overcommitted as the McLaren. Romanenko then just had nowhere. He couldn't turn in because the Lexus was there. So Romanenko just had to go over the dust. Basically, he'd gone a little bit too late on the brakes from Corti. Oh, switched back to the inside line for that last chicane and bows out of it. I think quite wisely. You need to be alongside much earlier than that if you're going to make a move into that last chicane.
And, well, Romanenko's going to have to be careful. Remember, he's already got a warning from race control. He's trying to desperately find a way through on one of the toughest circuits on the calendar to overtake. And Andrea Corti is having none of it. Meanwhile, look at Zai. Oh, that's gone.
Oh, no!
He's been sent spinning by Offerman.
Oh dear, oh dear. It's Ottoman getting a little bit Offerman getting a bit too aggressive there. Let's see how this kind of transpired. Well, that's Boothby we're looking at the moment. So that's out of the battle. So this is where we switch to. And there it is. Just, I think Offerman just didn't anticipate the speed differential between himself and Van Zyl. That's a little bit clumsy there.
I'm not actually that sure, Chris, because I think I think that one might be on Van Zyl. I mean, we've only seen it once effectively, but I would like to get it from Van Zyl's point of view, because it almost looked to me like he came out of the corner, and we then saw Offerman coming up alongside, and then Van Zyl essentially, maybe he lost the back end a bit and came back across, and that's what caused the incident. So I would love to get another view of it. Of course, Race Control will be able to see multiple viewpoints, and we'll wait to see if there will be any action on that incident. But we still have this terrific battle for P3. Alessio Cataneo ahead of George Boothby and Mattia Vacca, with Marcello Bonacorsi closely behind in P6.
3rd to 6th in that particular fight. So there's the helicam on the right hand side. We're looking at Boothby that is fending off the advances of Vacca, and there at the bottom of the shot is Cataneo. Again, the Bentley having a look on the inside line, but that's nothing more than a distraction technique. Oh, that's a lovely line there from the McLaren. Surely that is job done for George Boothby. That's exactly how Amato got past Cataneo. Cataneo knows the game is up. He didn't try and turn in. He knew that one was done. So just a small mistake from the BMW and a storming exit from that chicane from the McLaren sees George Boothby up into 3rd.
And I just want to see if we can get another view of it, possibly. Yeah, okay, he got it out of the chicane, and never mind. He just got a really good run from the chicane, and it's and it was then done from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Offerman.
That's Offerman, yeah. Stop and go penalty being given to the McLaren, and yeah, obviously Race Control felt that was more on him. I mean, he was the car behind, so there's almost an automatic responsibility applied to the chasing car in the first place, irrespective of what happens ahead. But that's the nature of the beast, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you know, some people might think, okay, harsh penalty, but at the same time, this is endurance racing. Usually we expect it to be a lot cleaner, less aggressive moves, especially towards the start of the race as well. And well, consistency is the most important thing, right?
Generally speaking, consistency is always going to pay off more than, you know, just wild raw pace. So, you know, well, hopefully they'll be able to settle back into their routines. Obviously, we have pit stop still to deal with as we look at the Aston Martin of Vercheka, who's already been in the wars a little bit earlier in the race, chasing the Lexus of Corti. That is Andrea Corti for Renegade Sim Racing Work Group. The number 33 car on the back of Romanenko as well. So that three-way pack hasn't really, well, the Aston has kind of caught them. Oh wow, the tail of the Aston got very lively on the exit of the complex.
Cataneo.
Oh, mistake for Cataneo.
So he ran a little bit hot, and that means that the two behind him, Vacca's going to get a decent run, could maybe look to the inside. But we've already mentioned it, the braking down into turn 1 is just not harsh enough. But that just gives you a little bit of confidence as the driver behind, knowing that the car ahead is feeling the pressure, is starting to make mistakes, and it just enables you to put, or I should say apply, more and more pressure.
Also, you've got to think that Cataneo has been defending, and those little tiny mistakes are what's cost him second and third, and that's very hard to kind of cast out of your mind. Again, the Bentley has a look on the inside line coming down to the small chicane, doesn't commit to the move again quite wisely. Did they all get through the chicane? Well, pretty much all in uniform there, as we see BMW being chased by Bentley, being chased by Ferrari. There's the back camera shot from Cataneo. That's what he's had to deal with all race long. He's had a different set of headlights staring at him, burning a hole in his soul essentially. But it's very hard to defend for a very long period of time. We can't understand. Yes, Cataneo has lost a couple of positions, but he's still done brilliantly well to defend as long as he has.
Yeah, well, Cataneo finds Vacca behind Bonacorsi as well. Meanwhile, up at the front, Ahmed Hosseini has himself a whopping 15-second lead over Pierluca Amato, who is a further 6 seconds out of George Boothby. As Cataneo again, he makes the same mistake in the final chicane.
That was a couple with a brilliant exit from that turn from Vaca. He just got the slide of that Bentley perfectly handled. That gave him a brilliant extra little bit of exit and through into fourth then for Vaca, demoting Cataneo to fifth and throwing into the Ferrari. Is he going to be able to fend off the Italian stallion? We will see as we come through the second part of, or the last part of that right-hander, we should see. But that Ferrari is right with the BMW. He could potentially try and move into the small chicane, and he's opted not to this time. Oh, Boothby, just as I saw him smack that last apex of that small chicane very, very hard, but he's already got a big amount of breathing space between himself and his pursuers. But now the Bentley is past the BMW, as we've said. We will see if Vaca can close back in on Boothby.
And while Bonacorsi tries to find a way through on Cataneo, I think we're going to be jumping on into our commercial break, and we'll be back shortly after to resume racing. But don't worry, you'll still have a lovely screen to keep up with all the action through the commercial breaks.
The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Two-hour race here at Zolder for GTR 24H for the ACC Sprint Series. Wow, what a first quarter we've had so far. My goodness me, we still have an hour and a half to go. We welcome all viewers, fresh faces and racing aces alike. We hope you've enjoyed it so far, and we think we've got a lot more to come. In the break, we had Cataneo fending off the advances of Bonacorsi. Almost, the Ferrari very nearly got past, but just couldn't quite squeeze past the BMW coming through that first turn. But we've got so much fighting going on.
And we've had essentially this race has been, the first quarter of this race got determined into turn one. Ahmed Hosseini, Pierluca Amato a little bit further back, made a mistake, and it was Alessio Cataneo able to take advantage, making his way up into P2. From there, he was just a cork in a bottle, allowing Ahmed Hosseini to pull further and further away. Eventually, Pierluca Amato, George Boothby, Mattia Vacca have all been able to find a way through on the number 25 of Alessio Cataneo, who is currently down in P5 with Bonacorsi close behind, and that is what you can see on your camera to the side as we then switch on over to Ahmed Hosseini, who continues to lead and is already lapping some rather unfortunate victims.
Goodness me, the raw pace of Hosseini is scary. So, replay then of what are we looking at here? So that is Gelato. Oh no, beg your pardon. That's the BMW. That was the side-by-side moment I was referring to earlier, of the Ferrari almost getting past the BMW, just couldn't quite do it, coming through that long right-hander. It's very close. I mean, the Ferrari might have been able to do it, but just decided to play the longer game. And again, we're only a quarter of the way into the race, so quite sensibly bowing out of that before it all turned to tears.
I think we're still waiting as well for Bastian Offerman to serve his, I think it was either a drive-through or stop-and-go penalty that he got for contact with Flip Van Zyl, who has now dropped down to P16 and is 15 seconds behind Alex Cerato.
So this is how everybody sits at the moment. Hosseini is just disappeared. We haven't seen him for a while, and we haven't needed to, because he just has been unchallenged at the moment. There you go. So on the last update, 16.5 seconds in just the first quarter of the race alone. Second is Pierluca Amato, also in the BMW. Then it is George Boothby for Yes Heat in the McLaren, followed by Vacca and Cataneo rounding out your top five. There's been so much fighting going on. It's been a joy to see so far, and we have a lot more to come.
Do you want to know something, Chris? There's a certain driver who's on a bit of a move, and it's the one who is on our screen, Mattia Vacca, closing in onto George Boothby. Last time round for Vacca at 29.0. George Boothby last time round at 29.8. So 8/10, the gap being brought down by Mattia Vacca, as Mattia tries to essentially put one more Italian into the top three.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Vacca in the Bentley, a car I didn't tip to do well here as Zolder, or not as well as some of the cars we've got on offer. And I'm not surprised to see the BMWs and the McLaren up front. I did not think the Bentley was going to do well, but that just goes to show how well Mattia Vacca is doing in that particular car. He's already closed back in, exactly as you say, Yusuf, on that McLaren. Now, Amato is several seconds up the road, a good 5-6 seconds at least between themselves and the McLaren, but Mattia Vacca has got incredible pace at this stage, so Boothby is not going to have that podium all his own way. Further behind them, Cataneo and Bonacorsi have closed up again, so the battle for fifth has resumed.
We're getting to that stage where we're going to start to see strategies coming into effect. I think once we get to 1 hour 10 minutes remaining in this race, that's when we might start to see the first pit stops. Anyone who went light on fuel for their opening stint will start to make their pit stops. I remember back to the inaugural season when I believe it was Euronics in a Lexus always went at minimum 70 minutes in a stint. Sometimes they even went 80. It was rather ridiculous just how far they could go in an opening stint. We'll see whether anyone can pull that one off, as you see Mattia Vacca flying over the curb through the chicane.
Yeah, that's generally not paid off, but no one seems to have told him. And there we go, the stop-go penalty has now been applied to car number 83. That is Offerman. You can see that in the tower, that he will have that to serve upon his pit stop for the incident involving himself and car number 118. That's Van Zyl, that saw the BMW heading into the wall. Look at this, the Bentley has decimated that gap between himself and Boothby. So the battle for third is very much on again. Whilst he's been closing in on the McLaren, that gap behind them to Cataneo has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Cataneo has done his best to defend what was second, but sadly his pace is just not quite enough to keep him in contention for that for potentially the top five.
Meanwhile, Alessio Cataneo is coming under some pressure from a certain Marcello Bonacorsi, who is right on his tail. The Ferrari right behind the number 25, the BMW, German versus Italian engineering.
Indeed, and the same liveries on those two cars as well. But now Bonacorsi's played a bit more of a cautious game. Hasn't sort of made those big banzai moves. He's very cautious actually into that small chicane. You can see the difference that's cost. Now Cataneo does attack those apexes a bit harder in the BMW. You saw him just clout that second one in that small chicane. Oh, both of them get squiggly, but the Ferrari's gone off the road, and Bonacorsi's going to lose a fair amount of time. I mean, he was lucky he didn't head towards the wall, but look at the amount of time that's cost him. Now, of course, Bonacorsi has been the quicker of those two for a while, so he should be able to close that gap back up. But that's just, when you've been stuck behind a car for so long, frustration will inevitably kick in, and that, no doubt, is what sent the Ferrari off into the dust.
Yeah, Cataneo, I don't think he's got much frustration. I think he's been quite enjoying watching people struggle behind him in absolute pain. And, well, Bonacorsi is the final victim of Cataneo, at least until maybe Princi closes in, but Princi is nearly 20 seconds down, so I think Cataneo has the pace advantage in that particular battle. The only other battle that's really going on right now is Simone Vacirca and Andrea Corti in the battle for P9. Andrea Corti about a second behind Vacirca, and they're lapping pretty similarly as well.
You can see in the highlights in the picture there, that's where George Boothby got past Cataneo. That was when the Cataneo's hold on second was finally broken, and the McLaren then has got himself a fair amount of gap. A big one, that was his grip on third by that point, as Amato had already made the move, and the McLaren's already got that Bentley big one still with him. Oh, there he's no, that's not Amato, beg your pardon, that's Van Zyl that they're catching. I was just thinking, crikey, they've closed in on Amato suddenly. No, wrong BMW. That's the 118 car that they're closing into. So that's the BMW that was sent in, or almost into the wall. Couldn't actually tell whether he hit the wall from the camera angle we saw. And Offerman is in, so the first pit stop being served, and he'll be, of course, serving a 10-second stop-go penalty on top of his stops. So he'll be in for a while. There he is, the number 83 car, serving his penalty, and away he goes.
How far down the order is Offerman going to come down? Remember, when he effectively got given that penalty, it was when he spun Flip Van Zyl around, and he's going to come ahead of Flip Van Zyl. So while Van Zyl might feel that he's still been a bit hard done by, I think Offerman has lost a whole bunch of time due to that incident.
Yeah, he would lose a good 30 to 40 seconds, of course, coming into the pits, at pit lane limiter speed, and then having to get back underway again as we come back to this battle for third position between Boothby and Vacca, and they're catching to the back of Van Zyl at a very awkward time as well. That BMW, he's being blue flagged, but he can't just vanish. He's got to get out of the way. Nicely done, very, very nicely done from Van Zyl. He didn't hold up the McLaren to a huge degree. That was very, very nicely done indeed. That's another car in the background. I'm not quite sure who that was, but that might be Offerman actually that we've just seen in the background behind the 118. Of course, he's just come out of the pits. So that's the 83 McLaren post penalty.
I think Van Zyl might be having some fun for a few laps with Offerman behind him potentially, but maybe we'll keep an eye when that does eventually happen. I think it's only a couple of laps away. That's a battle for position as well between Offerman and Philippe Van Zyl.
I don't think they're on the same lap, as Offerman's still listed as ahead of him. So I think I suspect Van Zyl's had more issues than the one that we've seen, because he's quite some way behind Offerman at the moment. And he lost some time, but he didn't lose an entire lap. So I imagine he's had other issues, probably again, maybe feeling a bit hard done by from the initial issue. Look at that again, the Bentley having a look on the inside line, but Boothby will know, because he's been playing that game himself often enough with Cataneo. So he knows what that game's like, but he's still distracting. It's still the Bentley trying to get into the mind of the McLarens. It's Vaca trying to get into the psyche of Boothby just to get that little distraction to put him off his rhythm. As we said before, consistency is absolutely king here in Zolder. So if you make someone make that tiny mistake, then that's where the gains are made. That's where you just gain those few crucial tenths. And it does look like that Vaca's got the pace advantage over Boothby at this stage in the race. So that Bentley does get past. It could well be very, very difficult for George Boothby to get back into third.
So now the question becomes, where does Mattia Vaca want to make the move? Well, when you compare the Bentley and the McLaren, I think the Bentley slightly better on the brakes, slightly better over the curbs as well, the aggressive curbs. So really, you want to be getting a good exit coming out of the complex at turn 7, then closing in all the way through the fast flowing right and left kinks down into turn 8, the heaviest braking zone of the circuit. And that, in my opinion, is where Mattia Vaca should be trying to pass the McLaren.
We will see. We will see. That McLaren has been absolutely mighty, particularly on the corner exit, I've observed. So we'll see what... who is that Gelato that's just had an argument with the wall? Very odd place to have an argument with the wall as well. A bit of a strange one there, but carries on nonetheless. Nicely handled. Hang on. Oh, I was going to say, where'd the Bentley go? I thought he disappeared, but no, Mattia Vaca is still pressing on. We just saw the top of the shot as well. The top of the shot I was looking at as well. The cars behind the back markers of Offerman and Van Zyl, they're forming quite a train behind there. But here we go. You can see the ground they're gaining on Alex Gelato in the Aston. Hopefully he'll be able to get out of the way. He'll full well know that he's got lead cars coming up behind him. He's already had 2 of the BMWs come past, and he's got those blue flag warnings as well. So hopefully Gelato will behave, and very nicely done. Pulls over to the side, bleeds out of the throttle, and through go Boothby and Vaca.
For a second I thought that was Bonacorsi. I thought I saw 475 on the car. I was thinking, wait, what has happened to Bonacorsi? Then I realised Bonacorsi's in a Ferrari, and that...
something's really gone wrong if the Ferrari's hit something enough to turn it into an Aston. That's quite an impressive trick.
Are you telling me that an Aston is just a Ferrari that smashed into a wall? Is that what this conversation has come to?
I say nothing. They're both beautiful cars. And that very nicely done. It's good when the back markers behave themselves. You need no disrespect by that, but I'm sure we've all had it where you're I haven't, because I'm not fast enough. But when you're catching someone that's distinctly slower than you, and through their own lack of observation, they've ruined the pace of the race of the faster car. So there's always one of the golden rules in endurance racing, that the slower car has to be predictable. It's always up to the faster one to make their way past. But we're not talking about multi-class racing here. We're talking, the back markers will have to obey blue flag rules. So they do have to kind of slow down in a very obvious way. But they've got to be careful how they do it, because if they jump out of the way just as the faster car has made their committing move, you have a very horrible tangled mess into the wall. So they do have to be careful on how they do things. Oh, that he's getting very close again. Mattia Vacca just seems like, exactly as you said, Yusuf, just seems to be able to break it that tiny bit later than the McLaren, but the McLaren's just got such great exit speed out of pretty much any corner it goes into. So there's very much cat and mouse between these two. But Vacca, he's just piling on the pressure, trying to get Boothby to make a mistake, which has been very few. We have seen the McLaren go a little squiggly in a few places, but it's very few and far between. And Boothby will know he just has to kind of hold his line. He's got enough pace to keep Vacca behind. Exactly what I was saying about Cataneo, but Cataneo is now down in fifth. We'll move on from that particular point. But the Bentley is doing a brilliant job of staying right in the tyre tracks of the McLaren. That's not as easy as you might think. You do have to bear in mind that the car in front of you is going to be braking that tiny bit later than you, and it's very easy to kind of go tunnel vision and you end up in the boot of the car that you're chasing.
Yeah, the old Constantine effect can come into play, and it's also very difficult to be able to keep up with Georgia Boothby, regardless of what car he is in. Another thing to bring up, kind of following on from this point of Bentley's strength versus the McLaren's weaknesses, or the McLaren strengths. As you mentioned, that McLaren very good through corners. It's got fantastic cornering grip. So again, if Mattia Vacca, if you're looking at where you want to get past this McLaren, you want to be coming essentially out of a low-speed corner, because that's the kind of corner where the McLaren can't really use its advantageous cornering speeds. It's essentially able to use its better aerodynamics, its better mechanical grip through the higher speed corners. And you look at those low-speed corners, well, turn 8 is one. Maybe you could even look through turn 5, because it is a slow chicane. You kind of just throw the car over the curbs, and the Bentley usually better over the curbs than the McLaren. So maybe into the likes of a turn 10 could be a possible idea for Mattia Vacca. But as is often the case with endurance racing, with their 2-hour races, yes, we call it the sprint series, but it is still 2 hours long. It is still a long race. It's just a case of sitting behind, waiting for your opponent to make a mistake many times.
Indeed. Offerman in the pits again. Curious one there for the 83.
Is that his actual pit stop?
I'm assuming so, because he's coming to do a stop-go. I'm assuming that is an intended pit stop then from Offerman. No one else looking to pit at this stage. Well, we haven't hit the halfway point just yet. We still observe George Boothby fending off the advantage of that Bentley following him. Now, Vacca does take a few different lines to Boothby, and particularly coming into that slow right-hander we've just observed. And Vacca's been doing that all race long. Whether it's personal choice or just suits the Bentley a bit better, not entirely certain. But Vacca is definitely trying different lines to do something about that pesky McLaren that has hogged his view all race long, as we see. It's not Chilato. No, they've already gone past Chilatas. I'm not 100% sure who that was. We've just seen going out of the shot. Oh, that'll be Offerman coming back out of the pits again. A slightly unfortunate place on where that pit lane joins.
It's still Offerman in the car. It doesn't look like it is Dominic Linker who has jumped in, at least not yet. So maybe Offerman had damage. Maybe it was Offerman that we saw hitting the wall. No, I don't think it was.
No, I'm pretty sure that was Gelata that we saw hitting the wall there. That's Linker. That's Linker that's coming. That's we now see at the bottom of the shot there. Offerman has used his pit strategy to pit early, so he's opted to get out of the way. Driver change, yes, that's what's gone on with the number 83 car. That's where we're getting confused. So that's Linker that's come back out in the 83 McLaren. So Offerman has handed the keys over to Linker, who's immediately got to get out of the way. That's got to be that's not a great way to start your stint, is it?
No, it's never nice when you come out of the pits. You're trying to find your own footing with some laps with a full tank of fuel as well, and then you've got fast cars coming to lap you as well. It just gives you a little bit of it takes away a bit of time for you to be able to find your rhythm and as a result it just costs you those extra seconds. But Linke at the back of the field, pretty much only Van Zyl behind, who is a lap down. We'll see though whether Linke can close into the likes of Chialato and Dvorak, and Dvorak will be pitting as well soon, and it will be his teammate who will be jumping in. Teddy Franks, who we sadly didn't get to see him at all in Monza, as Wojtek Dvorak I think went for a rather long stint, if I recall correctly.
He's actually Gelato we see at the top of the shot there. It is the green flashed Aston. We see now heading towards the camera. Oh, was that Dvorak? That's Dvorak, I beg your pardon.
I was thinking that's a weird looking Aston for a second.
Yeah, that's me getting the marks wrong. So now is Dvorak going to do what we saw Gelato do earlier? Bleed out and get out of the way. Oh, okay, he's gone with the... oh, okay, you don't have to jump onto the grass. That's one way to do it. Again, caught a rather awkward place there. You can't just vanish. Going onto the grass isn't always the optimum way of doing it. Sometimes you just end up going onto the grass in panic. Oh, and he's actually fallen off the road again as Dvorak. But if you go onto the grass, you risk spinning into the path of those trying to lap you. I had an unfortunate incident once in a sim race where I saw the leaders coming up behind me. I indicated to him to go to my right, just to the point that I caught a curb on my left-hand side, which pitched my car into him.
Oh,
yeah, I was not a popular boy that night.
I can believe that. I'm sure a few stern words were probably said to you as well.
One or two. Let's just say they're not stream friendly.
Yeah. It's reasonable, and to be fair, I mean, when you're racing under the helmet, you've always got you're always thinking of some rude things to say about the driver. I know sometimes when I race in karting, I like to scream at myself in the helmet because I like to think no one else can hear me, but it's quite surprising because people can, and afterwards there's another driver saying, "Were you screaming?" It's just like,
wow,
just like riding behind me or in front of me, or driving in front of me, and just being able to hear me randomly screaming. Sometimes I like to sing as well, get a few pop songs going in the middle of a karting race.
Each to their own, I suppose, would be the answer. I remember once, many years ago, when I was considerably thinner than I am now, did a few karting events, and someone came past me, and they was challenging someone I'd been struggling with, and I just said, "Go on, John!" And then I thought, "You can't hear me." He was long gone by the time I said it. But anyway, coming back to the race, we're still watching George Boothby keeping Mattia Vacca behind. Now, was that the BMW?
Pitted.
Yes, Cataneo has indeed pitted. Now, is he handing that car over to someone? Let me look at my list. No, it's a solo drive. So he and he alone will have the keys to the 25. Although I thought it was supposed to be number 26, but never mind. Who are they catching up to? Is that yes, that'll be the BMW of Mattia Traversa. So another car that's going to be getting out of the way. So that's, that pit stop will of course put Cataneo a little bit further down the order. Now I wonder if Vacca is going to consider going for a pit stop, or whether he's just going to follow the McLaren in. I'd be seriously considering a pit stop at this point. If you're caught up behind someone who just haven't quite got enough to kind of get past them, I'd think about a pit stop at this point. He's solo driving the car, is Vacca, so he's not like, he'll be back in the car again, so it's not like he has to hand over to someone that could potentially have a pace difference. So I would seriously be thinking about it.
And the thing to remember is we don't have any information about this, and when you look towards George Boothby and Mattia Vacca, each of them, they've only got half of the information, because they know how much fuel that they have left in the tank, they know how far they could go, but they don't know how far their competitor can go. And to be honest, it is Vacca who essentially holds the cards on when he wants to pit. He can pit early, he can try to go for an undercut if he pits in, or he could look to pit in later, which means that he will be essentially able to finish off his stint with less fuel in the car, a lighter car, which ordinarily means a faster car. But if George Boothby has pitted before him, George Boothby will have fresh tyres on the car, which could potentially counteract the increased pace of a lighter car.
Traverse is going to become real popular real quick as we see the McLaren just dance over those apexes. Yep, bleed out the throttle. Nicely done. Very nicely done there from Matthew Traversa. Oh, he didn't realise the Bentley was there. Now that's surprisingly easy. I've seen that many times in all forms of motorsport where a back marker gets out of the way of one car without realising there's another one right behind it. So they go to return to the racing line as per normal, and suddenly they either cause a problem for the second car coming through, or they have to jump back out of the way again. But thankfully, Traversa was paying attention enough and did not clatter into the side of the Bentley. Now, are either of these two coming in this time? No, the McLaren isn't, and the Bentley is not interested in doing so either. So, looking to continue to their points, continue to their strategies. We're fast approaching the halfway stage in this race, so it could be they're just going to hit the halfway stage and then come in. We will see. As we said, both of them are sole driving their cars, so they're not handing. There's no one waiting in the wings to take over their cars. Is our race leader solo driving? Yes, he is. So the rest of the field don't even have another driver to hope to slow that car down.
I think something else that we do have to consider in this battle between Boothby and Vaca, and I'm not actually sure of the answer for this, maybe some of the race engineers who I think are watching in the YouTube chat could let us know, is which car is more economical, or I should say which car guzzles fuel more, because I don't think any race car is really economical. Essentially, whichever car uses up more fuel is going to have more fuel to put on during the pit stop, and as a result they're going to be stationary for longer and either lose their position if it is George Boothby or fall further behind if it is Mattia Vaca.
Fair point, well made. Race leader is in. Hosseini has brought in his car. Is Amata going to follow, or Bazagi has gone in. Oh, the Bentley! Oh. Crikey, that's close. So Vaca has opted a bit at a different time to Boothby. Now, Vaca would have known that George Boothby wasn't pitting at the same time, as you've just seen, because of where the braking point is for that last chicane in relevance to where the pit lane entry is. You know before, in advance, whether the guy in front of you is going to pit or not, because of course they've just hit the brakes. But that would look so close. Amata has continued, so Pierluca Amata has taken over the lead of the race for now. I think it's fair to say that Hosseini, assuming he doesn't have any major incidents, is going to be taking up the lead back again as Traversa. Wow, that was a short stop. For the BMW, he's already on. Is that Cataneo he's on the back of already?
I think it might be.
Must be.
Yes.
I was a back marker, I beg your pardon. So, Cataneo is some way down the road. Cataneo's just gone through the slow right-hander, so he's on his, and he's actually got, I think there's a martyr actually coming up to him. There's a Dominic Linker in the 83 McLaren we saw being handed over earlier on. Let's see if he's able to make up for any lost time. Another one in, that is Corti. Andrea Corti has brought the Lexus in. Is that going to be a driver change? Nope. That's a solo drive for him. And Hosseini is down into 4th position now. So if he catches the back of Bonacorsa, then strictly speaking that is a battle for position, but I suspect the Ferrari might not hustle too hard. George Boothby is in now. This is going to be interesting to see whether Vaca in that chasing Bentley is going to be able to overhaul the McLaren. Bonacorsi's come in as well, so Hosseini's got a clear run at least into 2nd, and you can assume then that our new race leader is not going to be far behind.
Yeah, so George Boothby into the pits, and this is just one lap after the pit stop that we saw from Mattia Vaca. And Mattia Vaca, I'm not quite sure how long he was stationary for, but essentially I don't think there's going to be too much time between the pair of them. Maybe Mattia Vaca a little bit quicker than George Boothby. But I think this pit stop's just going to come down to who has to put more fuel into the car.
Indeed. We'll see where they shake out. Princey is coming through as well. As the camera cuts to 9th position, that is Alessio Cataneo. And Boothby is underway. But where is Vaca? Or is Vaca in relation to Boothby? Is the chief question.
There.
Wow.
Where is
Boothby was much quicker. Oops, as someone's had trouble coming in.
That's Barzaghi.
That's
Mercedes.
Oh dear. So Barzaghi's not long pitted, so not.
Vaca's lost so much time.
He has. He's either made a mistake or he's been held up somewhere. He's way behind now.
Okay, so he's lost about 4 seconds. So I think that's just the case of Vaca pitting a bit earlier, so needing more a lap extra fuel, and the Bentley needing more fuel in general than the McLaren. Okay.
So don't know. Is the honest answer to that, but either way, Vaca is some distance behind Boothby now, with a back marker in the way as well. So he's had the pace advantage leading up to this point. Let's see if he's able to close that gap down now post pit stop.
Yeah, I think with that we're going to jump on in to a short commercial break, and then when we return we'll have the second half of the sprint race, or the sprint series opening race, coming your way. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a short bit.
The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
1 hour. Well, 1 hour and 5 minutes completed here at Zolder. 54 minutes remaining. And Chris, so far Ahmed Hosseini has looked absolutely unstoppable. Gianluca Amato, the reigning champion, has done a decent job, but I think everything was pretty much lost again on that opening lap when he fell behind Cataneo and then spent the first half an hour of the race stuck behind his fellow Italian compatriot.
True, but Hosseini has just continued to build that gap, even when Amato was in free air. So, it's debatable whether it's going to make a lot of difference, but what a great battle we had as well for third between Boothby and Vaca, but post pit stop that seems to have whittled away a bit, with Vaca some considerable distance behind Boothby at this point. As we're looking at Matteo Vaca, there is the McLaren of Boothby. He was hustling, so you can see how much time's been lost in the pit stop for the number 16 Bentley. Also, I'm curious to see where Amato is going to come back out. He should technically be some distance down the road to the McLaren, but we will see. And there we go. Just as I say that, the pit markers disappeared from Amato's name, so the BMW will come out some distance ahead of the McLaren, so shouldn't be hassled too much. I think now that the back markers are out of the way, that Vaca is closing in again on George Boothby. We will see 53 minutes, still plenty of time for people to sort themselves out, as Cilato is now in the pits in the Aston Martin in the 96 car. And that's most... a drive-through has been applied. Naughty Soretti in the 27 car. He's only just got in it. So the number 27, that was Luca Princi for the Renegade Sim Racing Work Group. One of the teams, I should say. That's the number 27 car. Has just earned a drive-through. Now, of course, Soretti would have been carrying any warnings and what have you from Princi's drive. He's probably just put a toe out of line and bang, a drive-through. Oh, and Boothby's stuck. Boothby's got a back marker ahead of him. That's going to help Vaca as we were looking at the tower there. I saw that Boothby was stuck behind. I think that's Van Zyl. As another penalty has been applied. That's Cilato this time in the 96 car. Now, these aren't race control applied penalties. This is more likely track limits that are causing this. These are automatic penalties that are being given. So this isn't through human intervention. This is them probably pushing their luck a bit too hard. But Vaca can see that McLaren ahead of him. It's really motivating him to push on. But now Vaca has got the back marker ahead of him, as Vaca has... Oh, nicely done. I think that's Van Zyl in the 118 BMW. It's very nice. He got out of the way without costing himself too much time. The drive-through has been served as Dvorak in the 34 McLaren is now in. Is that a Soto drive? No, Teddy Franks will be taking over the 34.
Absolutely, and going back to your point regarding the penalties, drive-through penalties tend to be given by the game. If we ever get a penalty being given by race control, we tend to hear it being announced over the top of our commentary, and we didn't hear anything regarding Cilato, so I think that might be something from the game. We do get instances where if a driver will get given an unfair penalty, one of his teammates, his race engineer, can go to race control and say that it was, or argue that it was an unfair penalty and ask for it to be removed. And if the stewards agree, then it can be removed. Sometimes the stewards will remove the penalty anyway so that they have a bit more time to look at the incident. And then if they think it was a fair penalty, they can give the penalty back.
Indeed, but that gap between Vaca and Boothby is definitely shrinking. That Bentley, having now dispatched of the latest back markers, is on the move. So, expect that battle for third to resume. How quickly, we don't know. Well, that's a back marker wandering off the road at some point ahead of him. So again, Boothby has got a back marker in between himself and his challenger again. So we will see. Our drive-throughs tend to be given for speeding in the pit lane. So
Yes.
just been informed. I think you've just had that notification as well. Well, I mean, you've only got yourself to blame as a driver. It is easily done. If you're just that little bit too slow, putting the pit lane speed limiter on. Not that I've ever done that. I've destroyed all the evidence, so you can't prove it. Or you're just too keen to take the limiter off. Actually, doing the latter is not a good idea here, because the pit lane exit is a long, sweeping left-hander, so you want to be careful leaving the pits here anyway, but it's very easy to be too slow putting the limiter on.
And it's got to feel bad. It feels bad as the driver handing the car over, because you come into the pits and you realize you sped and that you're giving the car over to your teammate, and they're just going to have to do a lap and come straight back into the pits to serve their drive-through. It's really not a nice way to start your stint, and things going fairly badly now for Ledge Racing, down into 15th place. They were 14 seconds down on Ciarato, but they would have jumped ahead due to that stop-go penalty. Now, with a drive-through for Teddy Franks, it's going to actually be fairly close between Ciarato and the 34 car.
Indeed. We're looking at Andrea Corti in the Lexus, got very, very sideways going through that last turn. Has now got Boothby right on his case. Now the Lexus is going to have to get out of the way. He's going to have to pick an ideal time to do it. And here you go, 4.5 seconds separates the McLaren and the Bentley for 4th position. Oh, the Lexus hasn't gotten out of the way. That's going to force Boothby to really banzai the inside of that chicane. I think that Bentley's lost time somewhere, because that gap, I'm convinced, was much smaller than that. So I think somewhere along the line, Mattia Vacca has lost time. As we see the McLaren working his way through the complex area. And Corti trying to... He was... message. I was just about to make that point, actually, that I think Andrea Corti was very, very slow. The point being made was respect blue flags, and Andrea Corti was very slow to obey the blue flag there coming into that chicane. That definitely caused Boothby to have to banzai that particular chicane. I wonder if that's what caught Vacca out as well. Someone potentially not obeying blue flags, but he's gained nearly half a second on Boothby in that one lap alone. Now 3.9 seconds separating the two.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, or as we heard from race control, drivers being reminded to respect blue flags, almost certainly being targeted towards Andrea Corti for taking a little bit too long to get out of George Boothby's way. And the biggest thing was he stayed on the racing line, and George Boothby, as a result, doesn't know, okay, you're not going to let me pass. That means I've got to come back behind you now through the chicane. As he's coming back behind him, then all of a sudden, Corti decides, oh, wait, no, I need to be lifts off, and then you can get an incident as a result. You could just ram into the Lexus ahead of you, almost similar to what happened in real life back in Saudi Arabia, between the two champion protagonists, although in that case no one was lapping anyone there. However, George Boothby...
that, I believe, is Simone Vacierca in the Aston that George Boothby just had to... Well,
race control aren't going to be happy now.
Well, I'm not sure. We kind of cut to that a little bit late, so I'm not sure whether it was Vacierca that was a bit slow on that one. What happened there? So, yeah, I'm seeing the same replay as you are as the cameras continue to watch Boothby. Now, was Vacierca trying to get out of the way and just did a bad job of it? We will see as the replay goes through. I wonder now, it was on the exit of the complex where it happened. So this is the replay. So we're on board now with George Boothby coming into, this is the area I always call the complex because I can't pronounce the corner names correctly. So you see there the McLaren had to get out of the throttle. I think it was Boothby just in a hurry to get past the Aston. Yeah. He was being a little cautious through that through that complex section. So it was very, very close, but I think it was just Boothby being impatient more than anything else. But in fairness, Vacierca was was quite a bit slower, so I can understand why Boothby opted not to get stuck behind the Aston.
Yeah, and I think Vachirka did a fine job. He essentially lifted off on the exit of the corner, allowed Boothby through. Boothby knew what was going on and just essentially tried to use up as much track as he physically could. Thankfully, didn't make any contact with Vachirka, otherwise he might have been getting a bit of a slap on the wrist from race control for that. So, at the moment, Ahmed Hosseini leads from Pierluca Amato. He's got a very comfortable 40-second lead over the Italian, and then Georgia Boothby is a further 5 seconds down, and maybe Georgia Boothby can make a bit of a charge, a late charge to close into Pierluca Amato, and maybe drag Mattia Varka along with him.
Indeed, indeed. We're down to 14 cars now. We've lost a couple in this race. We've lost Flip Van Zyl in the 118 guys, no longer in the race. And I believe the other one we have lost is Alex Gelato in the 96. I don't see them in the tower either. So that's the one of the Renegade sim racing cars and the 118 racing car are no longer with us. That's a bit of a shame. But still 14 cars and under 45 minutes to go now of this race, and Vaca again. So every time he gets some gains some distance on that McLaren, he gets a back marker in the way that's going to help him go backwards again. But yet again, the Bentley has gone through the latest wave of back markers, and Boothby is off on his merry way, trying to build up that gap to Vaca. 6.2 seconds separates Amato and Boothby, and that's been, that seems fairly insurmountable for Boothby at the moment. That BMW has really had the legs over everybody else. Certainly Hosseini's car has. It'd be interesting to see whether that pace difference continues in further rounds. We were talking at the beginning of the show about the difference in the likes of Monza in here. Monza being a big favourite of the big, powerful, well, they're all pretty powerful cars, but those that favour the high speed over the balance setup. So not necessarily someone that's going to run off with all the silverware in the season. We'll have to see as the season continues. But Hosseini leads Amato, leads Boothby at this stage.
I'm seeing Andrea Corti closing in onto Vachirka as well. Last time round, actually taking 1.6 seconds out of his fellow Italian, as on your screen, Alessio Cataneo just makes his way through the back marker that is the Mercedes of Barzaghi. He's currently down in P10, actually behind this battle between Corti and Vachirka.
Yep, the Aston, the Lexus is hustling the Aston, I should say. Velichevka we saw getting very, very close to George Boothby. No impact between the two, in fairness, but that Lexus is really hustling the Aston now. Simone Velichevka took that over from Alessio Velichevka earlier on. I'm assuming it's brothers. But Simone just has not been able to get up to speed in that Aston in quite the same way. So Andrea Corti, of course, has been used to the Lexus all night long, is being a solo drive, doesn't have to adjust to it in any way, so does have an advantage in that sense, and really is trying to pressure that mistake onto the Aston as they come through the final couple of turns, that chicane. They're not that far behind Romanenko in the 48 McLaren. What is the gap? Oh, so, okay, they were further behind than I thought they were. But yeah, Corti has caught the back of that Aston very, very quickly, but he's now stuck in this same situation. How do I get past? Picking the opportune moment to do it. Is he going to try and banzai coming into the small chicane? Again, we talked about this. We don't recommend it, but he may opt to go. He may opt to do so. We're well into the second half of the race now, and may feel that there's not too many opportunities left.
There won't be too many opportunities. 40 minutes remaining. Still, I guess, a way to go. Oh, wow. Vachirka really used all of the curve, and this is going to allow Corti to close in, but I think still too far back to send an absolute send down into the chicane, and for Corti, he's going to have to sit behind one lap further. 33 against the 46. Renegade against Renegade. So I do wonder if they'll be kind to each other as they do both essentially race for the same team.
Well, that was the case. I would have expected Vitaceca to have already gotten out of the way. As it does look like the Corti has had the pace advantage over the Aston leading to this point, but then we will see. It could be that Corti's got nothing left in the tank and he's just doing what he can to hang on to the back of the Aston Martin. We will see as the race goes on. I thought Romanenko was actually fairly close to Vitaceca. They're actually 2 laps apart, so they're nowhere near one another. Romanenko is long gone as far as this particular battle is concerned. And Vaca is losing time against Boothby. That's, of course, the battle we've been talking about the most. That's now 5.5 seconds between third and fourth. So that battle not looking to resume anytime soon. The battle we're looking at the moment with Corti is the closest one on track that we have. Less than half a second between them as they come through the last of the right-handers coming out their second turn. And that Aston is Vitaceca now starting to get used to how the car feels, where the grip is. Bearing in mind he's just gotten into that car after the pit stop. He hasn't raced it, he hasn't been in it from the race beginning, so having to get up to speed and could well be now finding his feet with that particular car.
Also got a potential battle that might be occurring for P10 as Jaredi is closing in onto Dario Barzaghi. We saw Barzaghi actually making a mistake not too long ago, and just over a second separating the pair of them, and last time around Jaredi able to take 6 tenths out of Barzaghi.
Indeed. And that's the Ferrari, I believe, behind them. So that'll be Bonacorsi in 6th position, looking to put a lap on them. They'll have to behave themselves as that continues to work on. And Giletti is really closing in very quickly on the Mercedes. So the Merc of Barzaghi did not have a good run from those slower corners. Is the Mercedes going to be able to defend from the Aston? We will see. There's Amato, I believe, that's just gone past. No, Bicataneo that's just gone past the shot. There's the Ferrari, not looking to get involved just yet. Of course, Bonacorsi will be drinking blue flags as Giletti's gone very deep going into the second turn. So it's going to cost him a few tenths over that Mercedes. You see the Mercedes kicking up a bit of dust, trying to create a smoke screen behind him. That's not quite how it works, but good try nonetheless. As they continue, they're coming up to the small chicane. And there you can see in the main camera shot, that's Vitaceca and Corti again. Oh, what a move from the Lexus. Crikey, he had an absolute exit of dreams from that small chicane and flew past Vitaceca for 8th position.
A fantastic move from Vitaceca, sends one down the inside, gets the job done as we're seeing Seredi getting out of the way of Bonacorsi's Ferrari. And while that'll be obviously a little bit sad for Vitaceca, sad for Ceredi, he won't mind because he knows that Vitaceca's going to have to get out of the way as well, and that might allow Ceredi to get even closer than he originally was.
He'll get a bit of slipstream from his fellow countrymen in the Ferrari as well, I would imagine. So all's well as ends well, as they say. Quite a lot of cars at this particular point. Not all on the same lap, of course, but quite a few people around the start-finish area. That's how endurance racing goes sometimes. You do end up with clumps of cars. Was Giretti really starting to push in the Aston, staying in the tyre tracks of the Ferrari ahead of him. Now, how is the Mercedes going to handle the fast approaching Bonacorsi? At the moment, the Merc is just holding his line. I would imagine he's going to bleed out of the throttle on this point, but he doesn't want to lose a lot of momentum. And bearing in mind, the drivers have just been warned about blue flags, and the Mercedes not getting out of the way at all. Oh dear. Now that could earn the ire of race control there, because again, he's under a lot of blue flags. That Ferrari was right in the tyre tracks, and look at the momentum that cost Bonacorsi. That's not good at all. Now, Barzaghi is quite a few laps behind the Ferrari. He should have relinquished that position, but he didn't want to lose the momentum to the Aston behind. But if there's a leader in front of you, behind you rather, tough, you've got to let them go. You can't prioritise your own battle ahead of that of the leader.
This is getting a little bit ridiculous from Barzaghi. He's almost kept Seredi behind him for an entire... Oh, pardon me. He's almost kept Bonacorsi behind him for an entire lap now. And don't forget, Bonacorsi was actually half a second quicker than Cataneo in front of him. He was closing in to Cataneo, and the gap between them is only about 5-6 seconds. And this is really not helping Bonacorsi's charge for P5. And Barzaghi, he's just not getting out of the way.
He's not, and I can't imagine that he's been told to stay there. There we go. Yeah, we were just thinking that car number 8 is being ordered to let the Ferrari go, and quite right, because he's got no reason. Oh, and that's a bit clumsy as well. That's not an ideal way of doing it, but this is what he wanted to avoid, was the Aston getting the run on him. Unfortunately, Barzaghi's got no choice, and there goes the Aston of Chadwick. Is he going to be able to get it done? Oh, that was close. That was very, very... sorry, Chiretti behind him. That was very close. Barzaghi just, and only just, managed to keep the number 27 behind. But, yeah, he was lucky he didn't get more than just being ordered to move aside. He could well have earned a penalty by just how long he held Bonacorsi up for.
So... Do you like... Well, okay, here's the other thing that I don't get, right? Barzaghi races for Team Ballas, Bonacorsi races for Team Ballas, Cataneo is also with Team Ballas, so they're all working against each other here, and I'm surprised that the, team owner doesn't get in this, or just, tell Barzaghi to get out of the way, as now we're seeing Seredi getting really close to the back of that Mercedes.
Yes, so the battle is very much resumed then for 10th position between Barzaghi and Chiretti as they come through the first turn. Now, I'd have thought the Mercedes would have been able to keep the Aston at bay, but he's not. Of course, the advantage that the number 8 had was wiped out with him being ordered to let the Ferrari through. Lovely camera angles. Oh, I was hoping the Aston wasn't going to try and commit to the inside line coming through that last right-hander of that long, at the end of sector 1, because that was only going to ever go wrong if he did. Thankfully, he got out of that. As they bounce over the small chicane. Oh, the Aston didn't quite handle that as well as the Merc. So here we go again. Chiretti is trying to find a way past, keeping the pressure being applied. But, that Mercedes, he's just doing what he needs to do to keep hold of that 10th position.
Battle for the final point-paying position as Seredi goes very wide on the exit of the fast-flowing right-hander. Outbreaks himself down into turn 8 as well. As we get a good old-fashioned instant replay. And yeah, again, right-hander completely flat. You've got to be committed. Already was committed, but ended up being a little bit committed towards the grass. But keep an eye on Bonacorsi though, because now that he has been freed from the Mercedes of Barzaghi holding him up, he is again trying to close in onto Cataneo. 4.5 seconds between the pair of them last time round. Bonacorsi taking 0.2 off Cataneo, and that was despite being behind the lapped Mercedes for a few corners as well.
Barzaghi's actually got himself a bit of breathing space from his pursuer, or did for a moment, and now the Aston is starting to close back in again. It could be that Chiretti chose to kind of back off and try and get a run on the Mercedes leading up to the small chicane, but no, he's not going to have enough. He can't draw alongside enough to make a move. Both of them take the small chicane as well as each other to the complex yet again, and the Mercedes hold on for another half an hour. It's a lot of laps to try and keep a pursuer behind, and Chiretti has certainly shown time and again he's got enough pace to keep Barzaghi in check.
The other thing to consider as well is Barzaghi is actually closing in onto Vacirca. Last time round, Barzaghi 0.4 quicker than the Aston Martin up ahead. So if Chiretti actually worked with Barzaghi, they could close in onto Vacirca, and maybe both of them gain some extra points as well. So Chiretti has to make a decision, as that's Barzaghi running completely wide into the final chicane.
But Giretti couldn't use that momentum. He got a good line through the chicane, but couldn't use it. He had to get out of it, otherwise he was going to be in the boot of the Mercedes. That's a great shame for Giretti there. He had a perfect opportunity to get past, but no space to use the pace.
And it's what you find so often. If a driver in front makes a mistake, you try to find the switchback, but you can just misjudge the timing completely. And as a result, instead of being able to fully get on the power, you actually have to lift or dab on the brakes. And that is effectively what happened to Giretti. If he was, maybe half a second further back, I probably would have actually overtaken Barzagli there.
Yeah, the irony of that. Into the small chicane again for the warring tribes. As over the crest, and again there's no gain there for the Aston. Barzagli just need to regain his composure, which is easier said than done when you've got someone breathing down your neck for lap after lap after lap after lap, and you know that they're that little bit quicker than you. Oh, again Giretti's overcommitted. It's on the exit of the complex, goes onto the grass, but does manage to keep his car out of the wall. If he keeps flirting with that grass, he's going to be facing the wrong way.
I'm just starting to wonder how worn out are those tires on Giretti's car, because I'm pretty sure that he would have changed his tires during the pit stop, but the fact that he's getting this consistent understeer through the right-hander is a little worrying. However, he does still seem to be quicker than Barzagli, who is closing in onto Vachirka. So we will be having a three-way battle for P9 soon, but of course he's closing in onto Cataneo. So while all of this brews, why don't we brew ourselves a nice cuppa and throw ourselves to a quick commercial break, and when we return, all the action I'm sure will be spilling over on the race circuit here at Zolder.
The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
race as we are into the final quarter now. Just 25 minutes to go. We've got a fascinating battle brewing for what is soon to be ninth. It's been a battle for 10th between the Mercedes of Barzagli and the Aston of Chiretti, but they are catching quickly Vacherka in the Aston and the number 46 Aston. That's gap now under 2 seconds between 10th and 9th. So that is going to be a fascinating battle. It does look like Simone Vacherka just has been struggling with that car. He's sort of had moments where he's gotten up to speed, but generally he hasn't had the pace of Alessio, who had the car at the beginning. And that Merc's gone deep into that final chicane, and this time Chiretti's got to run, but can he use it? He got really squiggly. He pushed too hard too quickly, and the tail of the Aston just got loose. Oh no, he'll be so frustrated. The Mercedes was too deep coming into that chicane, but Chiretti was too eager on the gas, and that just caused his tail to go out, and they've lost some of the gap that they managed to close down to Vacherka.
It's such a tough situation to be in if you're Chiretti, because this Merc is an absolute beast in a straight line. I remember last year, whenever we went to circuits like Bathurst, everyone was just donning the Mercedes as well as the Audi, and they were just unstoppable if you're behind them. You just can't get past. The horsepower is so incredible, and Chiretti's finding that out the hard way. He just can't keep up with Barzagli, even if he gets a much better exit, as that is Ahmed Hosseini flying past Chiretti.
Wow. I did wonder what Chiretti was doing there, but then he very wisely is just getting out of the way of the leader. That was very nicely done, sacrificing his own battle. I mean, if you want an example on how you should do it, there is a perfect demonstration of how you obey the blue flags. And dear Lord, did that BMW come through quick. But and there goes the Mercedes. He needs to bleed out the throttle a bit, but again, Barzagli does not want to lose momentum as he did before. He was very close to running into the back of the leader there, but he's done it. He's done it pretty well, and if anything, he's gained some gap on Chiretti, although that gap is already coming back down again. And the Mercedes is going to try his best to hang on to the back of the BMW, but no one can hang on to the back of that BMW.
Ahmed Hosseini is just absolutely phenomenal today, and you might even be tempted to say, oh yeah, it's a BMW versus the other cars will come back in other races, but remember, Pierluca Amato, the reigning champion who won last season with Musto, he's in a BMW as well. So Ahmed Hosseini absolutely fantastically fast, and we'll see whether he can keep this form when we head to Kyalami in 2 weeks' time. But again, Chiretti so close to Barzagli on corner exit, but then you can just see that Merc just pulling away afterwards. And when you start thinking about how this Aston can get past the Merc, you start to lose a bit of hope in the world.
That's the thing, isn't it? Merc's gone deep, and now that was the mistake that Chiretti kept making, but it didn't seem to make a difference to the Mercedes. No one told him he was on the grass.
Not only is it fast in a straight line, it's pretty good off-road as well.
It's a great lawnmower as well. Absolutely unreal. Now, this is going to be interesting, because now Vacherka's got the race leader right behind him. He's going to have to get out of the way, and that's going to compromise his momentum with two very fast cars behind him chasing him down. So that's going to really bunch up the battle for ninth. But yeah, Chiretti must be so frustrated now. He's just trying everything he can to get past the Merc, and nothing is working. Very nicely done from Vacherka though. He got out of the way during turn one and has cost himself very little time. Even still though, that gap is shrinking again, 9th to 10th. So we're going to have a three-way battle very soon. 20 minutes and change to go.
I think for Chiretti, his only way to get past is when Barzagli tries to overtake Vacherka. For anyone who's watched some anime out there, there's a cool anime called Hunter x Hunter, and what one of the characters learns is to catch his prey, he needs to wait for his prey to try to catch another prey, because then his prey is going to be off guard. And that's exactly what Chiretti's going to have to do with Barzagli. But the question is, where does Barzagli try to overtake Vacherka? Where can Chiretti hope to find a way through? Now remember, both Chiretti and Vacherka race for Renegade. Barzagli, the driver for Bala. So Barzaghi in a pretty difficult situation if any teamwork comes to play from the Renegade squad.
That's the thing, the Astons need to be working together, but that's very much easier said than done. I mean, we haven't really seen any kind of team orders or anything like that going on at all from anyone so far in this race, but that's not to say that it won't kick in now. I can't really see what Vajerka can do, because he's definitely the slowest one of this pack of three, or certainly based on what we've been seeing leading up to this point. Just over a second now between the Mercedes and the 9th place Aston Martin, as up front we see Hassani getting past another back marker. I can't quite see who that is he's just gotten past. Whoever it is not in this particular battle. It's not Corti. It's not the Lexus, I'm fairly sure. Unless it might be. Oh, it is. Oh, it is it's Alessia Corti. Andrea Corti, beg your pardon. Are we about to see a 4-car train form in the last 20 minutes of the race?
Let's go. And don't forget, we've also got Marcello Bonacorsi closing in onto Alessio Cataneo, GTR's very own Yano Trulli, and there's less than 4 seconds separating the pair of them.
Very, very true. Yep, I think we are about to have a 4-car train. Corti, Vacherka, Barzaghi and Ciretti all in this particular fight. And there you go. You can actually see all 4 of them in the camera shot. Lexus leads Aston, leads Mercedes, leads Aston in, well, also with the race leader in this particular combination. We will ignore his presence for now. We've pretty much ignored his presence all race long, because he's just vanished into the sunset. So, oh, what a battle we've got. And this is, as you said earlier, for the lower end of the points paying positions, but that doesn't matter. These guys are going to fight just as hard as they would for the win.
3 Renegade drivers and 1 Ballas driver. Barzaghi has the odds stacked against him in that regard, but maybe he's got the odds stacked in favor of him in terms of overtaking opportunity with the grunt of that Mercedes against what will be a very poor, almost limping in comparison, Aston Martin and Alexis ahead. Barzaghi and Ciretti have been closing in last time round. Barzaghi pretty much matching Vacherka, but going half a second quicker than Corti, and the 4 of them separated by about 2 seconds. Oh! That's the mistake that Ciretti was waiting for.
And there it is. The Aston has at last worked his way past the Mercedes. I can't really see what answer Barzaghi is going to be able to put in unless the Mercedes can force force a mistake onto the Astons ahead of him now. Now it's going to be between whether Vacherka and Ciretti are going to have an argument with themselves. Looks like Corti is starting to build that gap up a bit. Oh, that Mercedes hasn't given up. Very, very close in the back of the Aston coming through that slow right-hander. In the blink of an eye, the whole package or whole battle can completely change. And if the race were to finish now, lots of opposite lot going on in the Mercedes, then that's Barzaghi out of the points, and he's held on to that 10th position for so long now, and that quickly it all changes.
And Barzaghi, that front end seems fine, because when I'm riding on board with him, we've got the camera in the top right of your screen. The front end grips fine, the front end gets him fine. His own corner race at the rear end just looks a little bit loose, a bit too much oversteer for this Mercedes. I just wonder how worn are those rear tyres for Barzaghi. And now Barzaghi, I don't think he's going to get past Ciretti. We've already seen that Ciretti has way more corner speed than Barzaghi. He's not going to be able to get close to the Aston Martin through a corner, nowhere near close enough to be able to use the grunt of the Mercedes. There again, the back end stepping out through the chicane, and right now it's Ciretti. He can see Vacherka up ahead, Corti up ahead of him, and I think Ciretti is going to be fancying his chances of picking up P8.
Could well be. I think Corti is safe for now. The Lexus is finding a bit more pace than the warring cars behind. That gap around about 2 seconds now. So the race leader is gone. He's gotten past his package and now run off into the sunset again. So he's not a factor in this. Corti should be able to maintain that particular gap unless we see another mistake, as we saw from the likes of Berzaghi. He is 40, he's now 1.5 seconds behind the two Astons now. So he's tried everything he can, but the pace difference between himself and the Renegade cars is just a little bit too big, I think, unless they come together or unless they make their own mistake. But Veselka and Soretti now ready to do battle themselves.
And I don't know what's happened to Berzaghi's pace. He's completely fallen off, and maybe he's just with those maybe he just got his tyres overheated a bit. He's trying to cool them down. By the way, Ciretti is not letting up at all. He's on the back of his fellow Aston Martin, his fellow Renegade driver, Simone Veselka. Where can Ciretti find a move? A quarter of an hour remaining, just under 15 minutes left, and Ciretti on the hunt for P9.
Indeed. So obviously team-wise this won't make a difference. This is for purely driver pride. And look at we saw from the onboards of Berzaghi just how much he's having to fight that Mercedes to keep it pointing in the direction he wants to. And we'd watched that Soretti, it's all smooth movements. He's not having to wildly soar at the wheel. Now, last time I made that prediction, we had someone flying off into the dust. But you're just seeing this, smooth, deliberate, intentional movements. You're not seeing wild counter steering going on. So, Berzaghi, whether it's setup difference, whether it's tiredness, whether it's dead tires, whatever it is, Mercedes is very much misbehaving, and the Astons just seem absolutely planted to the ground. That said, Berzaghi is still pressing on and doing what he can to actually close that gap back down to about a second. So you may have been right, Yusuf. You may have just been backing off, letting the tires come back to him a bit. We'll see, but the Mercedes may not be out of this yet.
Still a while to go, 13 minutes. We're talking about around 8-9 laps left in this race. Of course, that can all be changed. All back end from Ciretti. The commitment through turn 4. And Ciretti is not holding anything back. Still a few laps remaining, and Ciretti is not wasting any time. You can see Corti up ahead, the pair of them staying within distance, and that's Veselka losing the back end.
Way too much curb on the exit of that small chicane. Yeah, they were gaining quite quickly on Corti as well for the last few laps. So, that Lexus is going to be involved in this battle as well. Oh dear, what a great shame for Veselka. That's gone very wrong very quickly. I mean, were we not saying that that's how, in the blink of an eye, that can go horribly wrong?
Absolutely, and I don't quite know what happened to Simone Veselka. I'm starting to feel a bit bad for you, Chris, because every time I start talking, something happens in the middle of it, and you're not getting to commentate on any of the action. But if we bring the replay up, which is on our screen now, we can see essentially what happens, because I think he just loses the rear end, taking too much curb through this chicane.
I suspect he's overdriving the car as well. He's trying to gain on the Lexus. You can see he's gained some time, and whack, there it is. He just almost straight lines that second one, and he's hit the wall as well. Oh dear. That's going to be a difficult thing to keep going now. At least he hasn't got long to keep it on the straight and narrow for. So that's Berzaghi back into the points then. Veselka now out of the points in that Aston. Oh wow, look how much time he's lost. Oh dear, he's now miles off the back of the Mercedes. What was it, 5.5 6 seconds. Oh, and now most of that will be the spin itself, but I suspect he's lost that edge. He's lost the pace he needs. Oh, here we go. That's Corti's already that are right with one another. And Berzaghi, no, I've done it again. I'm going to be banned from the commentary box soon, because every time I mention someone, and they go off the road, and there comes the Mercedes. Oh, can defend hard. The Mercedes forced to the outside line. That's never going to work there in a month of Sundays, but that's forced the Aston too. Here becomes the Merc. Oh, what a great drive from the exit of that right-hander for Berzaghi. He's back up in the 9th.
And Barzagi's just probably wondering how on earth has this happened? 2 Renegade cars falling off in front of him. He just needs Corti to have a moment as well. And, well, Chris, you might need to check your PayPal because I think Team Banners will be quite happy with your caster curses so far this race.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I've broken the counter. I don't know what my score is at the moment. My goodness me. And, well, I mean, Soretti is really pushing hard to try and get back into Barzaghi. You saw that 4-wheel drift going into turn 2 in the Aston Martin. My word. And, you know, I was saying earlier that Vajelica just, you know, seemed to be uneasy with the pace of that Aston. He's, you know, 6 odd seconds behind. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Well, I don't think he's going to be playing any further. But, oh, the Aston again, the tail lets go at the small chicane. But Toretti manages to hang on to that one. But, Barzagi's like, you carry on. I'm off after this Lexus. You do whatever dancing you want to do behind me, good sir. You know, I want to have a go at Corti.
I think Ciaretti trying his best to role-play his teammate of Vajilica, and then Barzaghi now trying to role-play Ciaretti going wide through the right-hander. And you can really tell, can't you, that we're in the final 10 minutes of the race. We're in the closing moments of the race when the tyres are at the worst that they're going to be over the course of this race. The fuel is getting low. This means that the drivers are able to essentially accelerate more than they have been able to through the rest of the race due to the lighter cars. And now Ciaretti's getting a good run, but he's not going to be able to match this Mercedes horsepower, surely.
He's having a go, but he's making the Mercedes having to, you know, go defensive. He's forcing Barzaghi to have to think about his rearview mirror. He can't just chase off after the Lexus, and that's exactly what Soretti wants to do. He needs to just get into the mindset of Barzaghi to get him out of his rhythm, because that was, like you said earlier, you said that Mercedes is an absolute beast in the straight line as they come out of that long right-hander. What can we expect to see? Well, I would imagine the Merc is going to be able to fend off the advances of the Aston here. Oh, but whilst they do that, that's just allowing Corti to run off into the distance. Both of them bounce over the apexes quite nicely. Oh my goodness me. So yeah, tyres are dead, drivers as well. Fatigue is definitely going to be playing a part. They're not going to be able to manage their frustrations. Like you say, you really, yeah, you feel the pressure with there's so little time left. You can't just rely on, oh, okay, I'll try again next time. Oh, the Merc's wide again. Well, we've seen how well it does the lawn mowing earlier on. He seems to lose. Oh no. Soretti, that would have been so good. Oh, and the Merc's had a really slow run. They've come together. Oh, my goodness me. That's an advertising hoarding that's now gone into orbit. And the Merc has just about stayed in 9th position. Corti's like, yeah, see you guys, I'm off. Oh, my goodness me. He's getting very scrappy now between the number 8 and 27 cars.
Final 8 minutes of the race, and we have a Mercedes and an Aston Martin wheel-to-wheel battling. It was a fantastic dive from Ciaretti, and I really want to praise Ciaretti for that dive because he didn't get baited by how late Barzaghi had braked. He spotted his braking point perfectly, and he almost was able to find a way through on Barzaghi on corner exit. A bit of touching between the pair of them, but I think that's fine. The stewards might have a little look at it, but I don't think there was anything too malicious about that incident. But Ciaretti, he can't find a way through on this Mercedes. This must be so frustrating for him.
God, look how long Barzaghi was on that defensive line for. He's not confident on keeping that Aston behind. He's feeling the pressure, something chronic. Are they going to be side by side coming into the complex? Not quite. The Aston couldn't get the drive he needed from the small chicane into the complex. Again, less than 7 minutes to go now. Everyone else is fairly spread out. Oh, well, I was going to say everyone else is fairly spread out. And then I've noticed Bonacorsi. Yeah, the Ferrari. He's less than 2 seconds away from Cataneo. So we will definitely check in with that battle as, well, unless these two actually do sort out who's going to be where. They're having a good old argument for 9th position. So,
I've just been informed by race control. The incident between Ciaretti and Barzaghi has been deemed a racing incident. There won't be any further action on it. So, Ciaretti Barzaghi for P9, Bonacorsi Cataneo for P5. Every time I've looked towards Cataneo and Bonacorsi, I've looked at their lap times and they've been relatively close. Then one lap, all of a sudden Bonacorsi will gain 8 tenths like he did on the last lap at 29.4 to a 2, we've got 2 battles that are going to go right down to the wire.
Yes, please. Let's have some of this. If my voice is going to go, let it go in style. This is not a bad way of seeing out 2021, is it? Oh, excellent stuff. But, Soretti had a really scruffy end of that last lap. You can see the amount of time that's cost him. It's cost him a second over the Mercedes. So he's going to have to hope for a mistake, really. That's going to be a difficult gap to close down in the remaining 5.5 minutes. But what is Bonaccorsi going to do? 1.3 seconds separates the Ferrari and the BMW now for the last of the top 5 positions. Oh yeah, it's going to be difficult to know which battle to look at pretty soon if Bonaccorsi continues at that kind of pace.
Yeah, Ciretti made a bit of a mistake, outbraking himself down the hill into the chicane, had to cut through the corner and slow down as well, so he didn't pick up a track warning. We don't know how many warnings Ciretti has. And okay, so This is a point, right? I'm gonna give some inside information, okay, Chris? Some little tricks you can do to our viewers. You can use this in your ACC online races. You are allowed a whopping 4 track warnings or 3 track penalties before you get essentially a drive-through penalty, a stop-and-go penalty. So you can use those to your advantage. If you know exactly how much track you can abuse, you can take that warning, you can get a better exit, you can make your move stick, and then just make sure you don't pick up any more warnings after you get the move done. But this, of course, depends on how many warnings Ciretti has already picked up.
Which we don't know. We have no idea what the penalty count is at the moment, but you can see now the 2 battles we've been talking about. On the left is Barzaghi and Ciretti that we have been watching for a while. On the right is Bonaccorsi and Cataneo. The Ferrari are now just over half a second between himself and the BMW with under 4 minutes to go. That Cataneo is going to have to flex his defending muscles again. We saw how well he was able to defend for so long in the early part of the race. He's going to have to do that all over again. But that Ferrari has just decimated the gap between himself and a top 5 finish in the second version of the opening round of this season. And I reckon Bonaccorsi is going to, I just get the feeling he's going to absolutely throw caution to the wind in these final few laps.
You want to know something else as well, Chris? Bonaccorsi and Cataneo are separated by a second. 2 seconds behind them is Ahmed Hosseini coming to lap the pair of them.
Oh, gosh.
And if he is successful in lapping them, it means that they have 1 less lap to battle, which is fantastic news for Cataneo. It's terrible news for Bonaccorsi as Ciretti right on the back of Barzaghi.
Here we go again. It's Mercedes versus Aston in this battle. BMW and Ferrari versus each other in the other battle. Although it's not gone quite as well for Bonaccorsi. He's made a bit of a mistake there, and that's going to cost him a few tenths. But look at Ciretti now all over the back again of Barzaghi. Oh my goodness, you dare not look away. Oh my goodness, well, with the side-by-side, we don't have to, of course. But Aston is poised to pounce again. He wants to force the mistake. Oh, the Mercedes did not have such a good run through that small chicane, but the Aston just cannot get the drive out of the corners that the Mercedes can. Doesn't break any later and remains behind for now.
Do you think this is going to come down to a last lap ascend from Ciretti? He spent so much time behind Barzaghi. I'm sure he knows where the most likely opportunity for him to send the Mercedes is. Whoa. And I think it's going to be this final corner at some point. Bit of contact.
No.
He sends him around, but look at what Ciretti does. He slows down, he makes sure he lets Barzaghi go, and I think race control will probably let him off with that one.
I would agree. If Ciretti had tried to hang on to that position, he would have been penalised almost certainly. That was too little, too late from the number 27 car. So I think that was fair that the Aston let the Mercedes back through. So yeah, here you go. And there he's ducked out, but the Merc is quite entitled to take the racing line. But the 27 just runs into the back of the Mercedes, and then Barzaghi is just like, right, fine, I can accelerate better than you. Has built up a few tenths of a second to hang on to their position. That is probably the last opportunity that Aston's going to have to make a move on Barzaghi.
There are aren't many laps remaining in the race right now. 1 minute on the clock. Ciretti still desperately trying to find a way through. Surely it's in that final hairpin. That's where Ciretti has to make the move. But Barzaghi, he's seen it coming now twice. He has to be wise to that possibility.
You would hope so, as yet again in the complex, and he's already reeled the Mercedes back in. I thought that Barzaghi might actually be able to open up a bit of a gap, or enough of a gap, to keep Ciretti behind, but doesn't look to be. Now, what does he do this time? He's too far back to make a banzai move realistically, and there we go, remains behind the Mercedes. 30 seconds until the checkered flag falls. Where is our racer? Shortly the leader.
Turn two.
He's in turn 2, so it's going to be, this is the final lap that our race leader is on. So this is now do or die, all or nothing for the likes of Ciretti and Bonacorsi. But Bonacorsi's fallen off the back a little bit of Cataneo, so it could be that the BMW doesn't have to defend too hard, has fallen even further back. So Bonacorsi may have to settle for 6th, but Ciretti is not interested in any of that.
And to be honest, I'm starting to think that Barzaghi has this position in the bag, but he runs wide through turn 2. This is going to be giving so much hope to Ciretti on the final lap of the race.
Oh my goodness me, again, it's Barzaghi on the inside of the final part of the right under, but they come together again. Oh no, the Aston and the Merc again make contact, and this time Ciretti has gotten ahead of Barzaghi. Oh my goodness me, that one's not a clean cut. We'll have to see that again to see who was really at fault. It's a dangerous place to try and make the move, but I mean, I don't know how race control is going to see that one. I don't want to make the move, make the decision myself, but
drive through.
I'm not surprised. But your winner for this race here is Zolder by a dominant performance is the number 82 of Amir Hassani. My goodness, my throat is raw. 81 laps done, and no one has been on his level at all.
Been, as you mentioned, pure domination from Amir Hosseini. And will it be a season of a domination for the Iranian champion Pierluca Amato? P2, it's been a solid drive for him, stuck in traffic for the first half an hour. After that point, he's kept things together, but the Italian just not quite at the same level as Ahmed Hosseini today. A good drive from George Boothby as well. And again, that incident between Ciretti and Barzaghi, what a way for it to end. A desperate move, but Pierluca Amato will secure P2 here at Zolder.
I mean, I think he should be disqualified for that livery, personally, but that's another matter. 55-second lead. Struth, that is unreal. That's more than half a second every single lap without fail. That's with the pit stop as well involved. Ciretti's already back in the pits. So, yeah, it's Hosseini from Amato. Boothby, in the end, a very distant third ahead of Vaca. I mean, bearing in mind how, before the pit stops, how glued together Vaca was. Vaca looked like he had the pace advantage over that McLaren, but was not meant to be. So Boothby rounds out the podium. Vaca 4th. Cataneo in 5th position. Bonacorsi 6th. Romanenko 7th, considering that he was one of the first to get a penalty in this race. And then Corti 8th, Barzaghi 9th, and Varcheka rounding out the top 10.
Well, there we go. First race of the season done and dusted. We're going to be jumping into a short commercial break, and when we return, we'll be having our driver interviews, hopefully with the top 3 from the race. Make sure to stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.
The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
It has been 2 hours of Zolder, just flew by, and we had thrills and spills all over. But what an ending that we saw, just with the Aston and the Merc just coming together. Oh my goodness me! But I mean, you can't take it away from Amir Hosseini. What an unbelievable performance. Nearly an entire minute to the good, and was just unchallenged all race long. We didn't see a single mistake. I mean, we had no reason to look at him. He just disappeared, and that was the end of his race. But I think everybody put on a really good performance. It's a shame we lost a couple. But I mean, we only lost two in a 2-hour race. I think that's pretty good. But well done to all of our drivers for making it home.
Yeah, and for one of the drivers, it was sadly had to be kicked due to high ping, so it was unfortunate. But again, a fantastic drive from Amir Hosseini, who was just completely untouched in that race. And speaking of Amir Hosseini, Chris, I think you've got a wonderful guest for your interview.
Let's get Amir Hosseini in, and hopefully, he did have a bit of an audio issue earlier. Hopefully, he's back with it. Amir, can you hear us?
Yeah, I am, guys.
Yes, we've got you. Hello, Amir. Well, my goodness me, what an incredible performance. No one came anywhere near you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I was on setup in this car with my engineer, and my engineer is alien of the alien in engineer world, and I am so happy with my car in this race, and tires in Stint 2 were a bit strange because my rhythm was a bit different from Stint 1, but race was so good for me, and I love this car, and McLaren, but I love this car for Zolder and Imola and this championship.
Excellent. We very much. So, are you confident then that you're able to continue this level of momentum going forward? We've got Kyle Army next. Is there a particular rounds that you're looking forward to? Is there some rounds that you maybe not so? What are your thoughts for the season coming up?
Yes, I am soldier now, and I am in military service, but I have no big time for practice. But this championship, I love this championship with these guys. Budvi is so fast, Amato is so fast, and I'm sure next race is so hard for me, but keep going for it. Let's go.
Great stuff. Well, we very much look forward to your performance next time around. Well done. A brilliant, dominating win. Thank you very much. Amir Hosseini.
Thank you guys.
Yusuf, you want to take the next one?
Sure. George Boothby is here with us, and George, P3 coming in for you. Are you satisfied with that performance?
Hello. Yeah, I think that was the best I could have got out of that race. It's a really tough track for the McLaren, so I wasn't expecting to really challenge the BMWs much. So I was surprised that I managed to still get a podium, and I was quite close at the end to P2, but just couldn't quite match the pace. So hopefully on the next rounds I can be a little bit more competitive when the track suits the car a bit more. But I'm really happy. I think that was exactly the best I could have got out of that race.
I kind of want to jump on into this whole kind of comparing the cars a little bit more, because as you mentioned, during the McLaren, Pierre-Luc and Ahmed Hosseini, who will probably be your two championship contenders for the title, are in that BMW. So do you think that this is literally going to be a case of race by race and whichever track suits the car? And if that is the case, what circuits do you think will suit the McLaren strengths?
I do think because I feel like those two drivers are obviously so quick, really quick drivers. So I feel like it might be a case of where those are sort of near the top of the field a lot, and then it could come down to hopefully a bit of driving. But yeah, there's definitely going to be like tracks that suit different cars better. I think for the McLaren, Silverstone would be good. Spa would be really nice. There's a few other tracks where the McLaren shines on. But yeah, the BMW is very fast. It came out for DLC a few months ago, and it hasn't been BOP'd yet in real life. So they've done the same in the game. So it does feel like it is very fast. It does feel like a super fast car. So what I'm thinking is, this is why I didn't really choose the BMW, is because I feel like Kunos might nerf it at some point. Like when it gets, in real life, when it gets a bit of a BOP change, they'll simulate that on the game as well. So I feel like in the long run, I'm sort of holding on to that maybe. But it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult to fight them. But I'll do the best I can, and hopefully I can come out on top.
Well, I'm starting to look forward to a late championship comeback from yourself. I want to touch quickly, though, on this Zolder circuit, because you were part of what was, I think, a five-man train stuck behind Alessio Cataneo, who was making his car, I think, the widest car Zolder has ever seen. Just how difficult was it to overtake at the circuit?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. I had a few opportunities here and there, but the way the track goes, like, you go out of one corner and you're almost instantly into the next one. So if you get momentum coming out of a corner, it's very hard to sort of use it. You've got to try and just force a mistake on another driver. So either just do like a mini send where you know you're not really committed, but you got to try and trick them and make them think you're committed. Maybe push, make the mistake and run wide. I don't know, just anything you can. You just got to play mind games. So because it's almost impossible to just make a genuine pass. So I was stuck behind a little bit, but like I say, I was just doing the odd little, put my nose there, maybe outbrake myself just a little bit to scare him, and yeah, eventually it worked, and I managed to get through at the chicane. So it's got to sort of do what you can to make the opportunities appear.
Well, final thing for myself, any shout-outs to sponsors or friends for this race?
Yeah, I mean, Yas Heat, they're the team I'm with, Veloce Yas Heat, and they've been amazing, and I couldn't have asked to be on a better team. So shout out to Yas Heat, and then also all the people in my Twitch channel. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the race.
Well, George, congrats again on P3, and we look forward to seeing you in action in 2 weeks' time at Kyalami.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, Chris, that's our interviews done, and fantastic to be able to hear from Amir Hosseini and George Boothby. And I'm excited to see what's to come for the rest of the season. As George mentioned, this McLaren versus BMW battle that we might get to witness.
Yeah, if this race was anything to go by, we're in for such an amazing season, and not just for the top spots either. We saw obviously the very long battle between the Aston and the Merc. As George says, there's going to be different tracks that suit the characteristics of the different cars in different ways. So yeah, we're starting to see the pecking orders to brewing, but it's not set in stone. We're going to have different tracks that are going to bring different people to the forefront. So we've had a great start of the season, and I very much look forward to its continuation.
Well, as you mentioned, it's been a fantastic race here at Zolder, and it's huge. I mean, first and foremostly, thanks to the drivers for putting on a fantastic spectacle. Even if they did get a little bit rough at times, it made things interesting, at least for myself, to watch as a commentator. And of course, Chris, thank you very much for joining me here in the commentary booth, and to all of our wonderful viewers for tuning in. But that is the Sprint Series opening round done and dusted. We will be returning in 2 weeks' time in South Africa, Kyalami, for the second round of the season. We hope to see you then.
The GTR 24H Sprint Series Season 2, Zolder, is presented in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, A-Stick Sim Sport, ESTV, and MotorVision.tv.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.